Tonight on Wolf Blitzer Reports, the War Room. The enemy struck first, a sudden and devastating blow. 6 months later, the U.S. is caught up in an all-out war against terrorism.
We have the opportunity to tear terrorism out by the roots.
While that may take years of struggle and sacrifice, how's the war going so far? We'll go live to the front lines in Afghanistan, and we'll hear from those fighting the war in their own words.
They had us pinned in at all four sides, just dropping round after round. And one would hit right after the other.
We'll look at the military and intelligence successes and setbacks. And I'll speak live with former NATO Supreme Commander, retired General George Jalwan, and former CIA Director James Woolsey as we go into the War Room. Good evening, I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting tonight from just outside the Pentagon. 6 months ago today, the United States was just beginning to assess the enormity of what had happened that morning. By this hour, it was clear President Bush would eventually respond militarily. That began on October 7th and has continued ever since. By all accounts, this war against terrorism will continue for months and perhaps even years. Tonight, here in the CNN War Room, we'll look at the successes and the setbacks of the war 6 months after it was declared, and we'll examine what lies ahead. For now, the U.S. military remains focused on Operation Anaconda, the campaign to destroy die-hard al-Qaeda and Taliban forces in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. CNN's Nick Robertson is near the front lines in Gardez, and he joins us now live. Nick?
Wolf, throughout the night we've been able to hear low-flying drone reconnaissance aircraft patrolling the area. From what we've seen close to the front line, they appear to patrol a large flat plain that if the al-Qaeda and Taliban elements were able to get out of the mountainous area, they could cross that plain and dissolve back into the Afghan community. So the reconnaissance aircraft appearing to be one of the walls that stops al-Qaeda and Taliban forces escaping. Throughout the day we saw B-1 bombers and A-10 bunker busters dropping bombs and firing missiles on the further side of that ridgeline. That ridgeline runs right along the front line of Operation Anaconda. It is a few miles from a U.S. Special Forces base, and there are targets that appear to be targeted from what we could see appear to be around the Shari-Kot village, the focus of Operation Anaconda, where most of the Taliban and al-Qaeda are believed to be hiding. And through the day as well, we saw about 300 to 400 Afghan reinforcements moving towards the front lines. They were coming on trucks, on small light pickup vehicles, lightly armed. They also took with them several tanks and several armored artillery pieces, also some multi-barreled rocket launchers. These forces have now been moved up into the most forward of positions. Again, they appear to be in a blocking position now, attempting to stop al-Qaeda Taliban forces getting out of the mountains through a deep valley. Wolf?
Nick, based on the conversations you've had with Afghan fighters over there and American forces, what is their assessment how this war 6 months into it is going?
I think the average Afghan wolf, if an Afghan can be described that way, somebody trying to lead a simple rural or city life, not a fighter, had hoped in the early stages of the international involvement in Afghanistan for a larger international force to disarm the warlords of Afghanistan. That hasn't happened. The trends that are emerging are that different fiefdoms are being set up around the country. However, those fiefdoms now do say that they will support the new interim central government in Afghanistan. However, it's a patchwork across Afghanistan, and while most Afghans saw the international involvement and the events subsequent to September the 11th as an opportunity to bring stability to the country, there is a level of stability returning, but there also is a level of fiefdomship and warlordism and a setup within the country that is still not backed up by a strong national army, and that still leaves people here wondering if real peace will be restored to them as they had hoped it might. Wolf?
Nick Robertson in Gardez in Afghanistan, thanks for that report. And the war against terrorism has already led to some significant victories, but U.S. forces have also run into some trouble and tragedy. Our national security correspondent David Ensor has a progress report.
It was only last week that the U.S. first put substantial ground forces in harm's way and quickly took heavy casualties, including 8 dead. In a battle to eliminate a mountain stronghold, U.S. intelligence had underestimated the number of men and arms the enemy had.
The picture intel painted was just a little bit different than the actual events happening on the ground by numbers of Al-Qaeda and the type of positions they had set up and so forth.
Still, the nation showed that it is ready to pay for victory, not just with money for smart weapons, but in blood. The president showed he is ready too.
I will not relent in this struggle for the freedom and security of my country and the civilized world.
For most of the 6 months since 9/11, though, the U.S. has relied on Afghan allies first cultivated by the CIA. Special operations units on the ground have helped find targets for aerial bombardment using precision-guided weapons. The strategy gets good reviews.
I think it's been a remarkably successful campaign from a military standpoint.
But the war on terrorism is only just starting. U.S. forces are moving in to help against terrorists in far-flung places like the Philippines, Georgia, Yemen. Officials get a little testy when asked about why they can't find al-Qaeda's famous leader.
You still don't have a clue where Osama bin Laden is?
I didn't say that.
You do have a clue?
No, I didn't say that either. We're looking for him. We're ultimately going to find him. Wherever he is not happy.
It will take more than brave soldiers and smart weapons to win the war on terrorism. The U.S. must be ready, analysts say, to spend time and money winning the hearts and minds of disaffected young people in Islamic countries.
We also need to work diplomatically, politically, economically, and as I say, socially, to alleviate the conditions that allow terrorists to grow and be supported.
We know we can't win this war just by killing people. You never can.
The military campaign in Afghanistan gets all the attention because it is visible. But most analysts say the long-term law enforcement and intelligence war is what will decide whether terrorism will be defeated. To beat al-Qaeda will take patience and generosity in the form of aid and investment in the Muslim world, not just bombs and bullets. David Ensor, CNN, Washington.
So has the war against terrorism been successful so far, and what lies ahead? Joining me here in the CNN War Room, retired General George Jalwani. He's the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and James Woolsey, the former Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Remember, you can email your War Room questions to us. Go to my webpage, cnn.com/Wolf. That's where you can also read my daily online column. And let me begin, General, with you. First of all, what's been the biggest surprise this 6-month war to you so far, if there's been a surprise?
Well, I think both pleasingly surprising to me has been how rapidly we've been able to move our forces to get in position, and within a little over 3 weeks from the time the sneak attack came here on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, we were responding. And quickly we developed a global strategy to take al-Qaeda on in several different countries. And to me, that's been a very good sign, a very positive outcome of this campaign.
Have you been surprised by anything, Director?
I'd have to say the thing I'm most surprised by is President Putin. His quick...
The Russian president.
Yes, his quick call to President Bush, his acquiescence over his own national security people in our moving into Central Asia, his acquiescence to the ABM treaty being stepped out of by the United States, and most recently, his acquiescence to our moving into Georgia. I think he's done a lot to change the face of American-Russian relations, and I didn't expect it.
A lot of people say the biggest failure, General, has been the failure to find Osama bin Laden.
I hope we would not focus on one individual. I know that's easy to say. I think we're doing it right. We're trying to eliminate the hardcore soldiers that are still in Afghanistan. In time, we will find Osama bin Laden. I could just relate in Colombia going after Escobar. It took over a year and a half. So we brought that narco-terrorist to justice, and that was done by the Colombian police. So I think our intelligence needs to work, but we should not gauge success here by whether we can Osama bin Laden.
So what's your biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment is to me, it's going to be on the next phase. In preparing for this next phase, we seem to want to distance ourselves with the international security force going in there. As your reporter rightly briefed, that is a critical part of this. We've got to make sure we do it right. We have not done it right in Bosnia and the Balkans, and we need to do it right in Afghanistan.
What's your biggest disappointment, Director?
Well, although our NATO allies invoked Article 5 of the NATO Charter and they supported us verbally.
First time ever.
Yes, first time ever. I've been disappointed in the reaction, particularly of the French and German foreign ministers and Mr. Patton, the essentially foreign minister of the EU, and the fact that only the British really have had forces that they were able to use with us on the ground. Now, the Allies have navies there, and a few Allied troops have been fighting in this recent, and some have been killed.
A few Canadians too, right?
Yes, and we're grateful for what they have been able to do. But the fact they don't have smart weapons, they don't have the command and control, they don't have even the special forces that can work with us and the British, I think has been something of a disappointment.
I interviewed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff yesterday, General Richard Myers, and I asked him 6 months from now, where do you think the operation will be? Listen to what he said.
6 months from now, I mean, you could envision, and nobody can know for certain, but you could envision that our major effort in Afghanistan might be over. That we would probably be in the middle of helping train an Afghan National Army.
Where do you believe 6 months from now, General, the U.S. military will be?
I think we'll be in several different countries trying to continue to take the fight to the enemy. Why I say that's important, so we can get our act together here at home on the Homeland Security front. We have to keep him disrupted. We have to delay his operations, and that means I think we're going to be in several different countries around the world 6 months from now, as well as trying to do reconstruction in Afghanistan.
What about 6 months from now? Where do you think the U.S. will be?
Well, I think we will be just exactly where General Jawan said, but I would also hope, frankly, that we'd be in Baghdad welcoming a democratic government to Iraq.
Do you think that's realistic?
It may be a bit of a stretch in 6 months, but I'm not sure it's a stretch in 9.
A lot of talk right now, General Jawan, about Iraq, and I want to bring in what President Bush said today at the White House, because there was a veiled threat to Saddam Hussein in his remarks. Listen to what the president said.
Some states that sponsor terror are seeking or already possess weapons of mass destruction. Terrorist groups are hungry for these weapons and would use them without a hint of conscience. And we know that these weapons in the hands of terrorists would unleash blackmail and genocide and chaos. These facts cannot be denied and must be confronted.
When he says, General, that they must be confronted, these facts, that sounds like a threat to Saddam Hussein.
I think it's very important we threaten him. I think it's very important we keep him off guard and make it very clear what our intentions are. To take a leap into when we're going to commit the force that may be necessary, I'm not sure that we're ready to do that at the moment. 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. But it's very important to focus on this clear threat to not only Afghanistan, but to that entire region.
You know, the whole issue of Iraq, Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister today, seemed to side with the U.S., but as you point out, a lot of other European leaders are not. Listen to what Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister, said.
Let's be under no doubt whatever. Saddam Hussein has acquired weapons of mass destruction over a long period of time. He's the only leader in the world that's actually used chemical weapons against his own people.
But he's a minority in Europe, isn't he?
Well, but he has the Italians, Prime Minister Berlusconi with him, the Spaniards, our new allies in the East, Poland and the others. The real feet draggers here are Paris, Berlin, and Brussels. They are, but much of the rest of Europe sounds more like Tony Blair.
Well, the Russians are also like along those lines as well, right?
Well, the Russians, I think, are mainly worried about money. They don't want to lose the $7+ billion that they're owed by Iraq. They want to have their oil companies in Iraq, but I don't think they regard Saddam as a client or even feel as strongly about this as the French and Germans do.
You know, General, you were talking about Homeland Security earlier. Our Homeland Security correspondent, Jean Meserve, is now reporting that tomorrow morning Based on her congressional sources, the Homeland Security Director, Tom Ridge, will announce a 5-pronged alert status situation here in the United States. 5 levels, normal being green, guarded blue, elevated yellow, high orange, severe red. It's sort of based on the defense condition, DEFCON 1, 2, 3. Is that a good idea to alert local law enforcement authorities with a color-coded kind of alert status?
Whatever system you need, you need a system, and I think it's we really need to get on with it. The disjointedness between the federal, state, and local responders is something that needs to be corrected, and that's what I meant by getting our act together here at home. This is the first step in doing it, and I applaud the effort.
What do you think about this?
I agree. I think it sounds reasonable to have some gradation. You're not always going to guess it right, but at least people have some kind of feel for how intensely you think these threats may be developing. I think it's a good development.
And you have to come up with specific definitions for each level.
Sure. And part of the problem is intelligence often doesn't give you, very rarely gives you time and place and specifics of a threat. It may give you the time but not the place, or the specifics but neither the time nor the place. And this lets you at least take account of that sort of uncertainty.
But make no mistake about it, we have, if I can call it a failure, the idea of coordination here at home with intelligence sharing, with who responds, that really is broken and needs to be fixed. And the sooner we get on with that, the better off our people and our nation are going to be. I think Ridge is moving in that direction, and I applaud the effort, but it's going to take a concerted effort by all Americans to understand that this is absolutely necessary. Before September 11th, terrorism was an operation other than war. Now it is war, and I think we have to understand that.
General John Juan, Director Woolsey, thanks for joining us on this 6-month mark. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And remember, I'd like to hear from you as well. Please go to my webpage at cnn.com/Wolf. Click on the designation for comments. I'll read them, as will my producers. And this note, I'll return at the top of the hour at 8 p.m. Eastern for a Live from the Pentagon program. You'll meet a man who thought he worked in the safest place in the world. He was the only survivor in his office at the Pentagon, right behind me. And when we come back, in their own words, U.S. troops talk about the war they're fighting in Afghanistan. And as we go to break, we leave you with a view of New York City and Ground Zero.
Watching Wolf Blitzer reports. Then after Crossfire, CNN takes you right to where the news is being made on Live From. You can depend on CNN tonight.
The spark of inspiration. The glow of desire. Discover a passion unmatched, where music, romance, and spectacle combine in a single blaze of glory. The Phantom of the Opera, now at the Orange County Performing Arts Center through August 24th. Tickets at the Center's box office or call 714-740-7878.
People think cab drivers know where everything is, but it's dispatchers like me who really find things. Someone's looking for antique stores in Orange or Laguna Beach? The drivers call me. Well, me and OCNow.com. Need a vet without an appointment? OCNow.com makes it easy to find things fast. From shopping in galleries to local jobs, classified ads, and events. Need to find something in Orange County? Do what I do. Use OCNow.com or call a cab. Oh, I'm their dispatcher.
This is CNN.
Welcome back. You've been hearing for months about the broad scope of the war on terrorism, but for U.S. forces in Afghanistan, the war often boils down to what lies behind the next hill. Here now, they offer some of their own perspective.
We've been called on to fight the war on terrorism. You are part of that fight. You need to be proud of yourself. You're representing your country.
Right when we got into the valley, we got ready to land. Everything was pretty calm. Bird landed, we got off, set up security. As soon as the bird took off, we automatically started receiving fire.
I was thinking it was a joke, really. I mean, because we weren't really taking it real serious to start with. You know, the first couple of rounds, we were just like, what was that? You know, are they serious? They're actually, because they were supposed to have bombed the whole area before we went in. But after that, yeah, it was nuts. Everyone's down, you know, moving as fast as possible to get behind cover, and we started taking, you know, casualties for the most part.
You can hear them when they set them off, when they fire them, but you can't really tell by any sound where they're going to land or anything like that. So basically, you just sit there. Once you hear it fired, you just prepare yourself and hope it doesn't hit you. An hour before sunset, they had us pinned in at all four sides, and the mortar system, they weren't really zero in. They were just dropping round after round, and it was one would hit right after the other, and it got to a point we were all down in between the little wadi, and just luckily a mortar round never landed there. When nightfall came in, Spectre gunship came in, took everything out, and we were able to get the casualties out. In the process of getting casualties out, we had fire from one more ridgeline. Spectre went in and took it out, and then they brought in 2 Chinooks and 2 Apache gunships to protect us. We didn't receive any fire getting out.
They helped us. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I don't think any of us would have come out alive if it wasn't for them.
What were they doing?
Everywhere from the Apache to the C-130s or the B-52s that were flying by, taking care of like the positions we couldn't see.
What did you think when you got on board that helicopter?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that we were on it.
Once you were free and clear of that?
I fell asleep. Everybody did. The whole bird was asleep. We've been up for over 24 hours, you know, fighting, so it takes a lot out of you.
And coming up, Israeli tanks and soldiers descend on a Gaza refugee camp, and the result is more bloodshed. Stay with us for our top story. That's coming up right after the break.
Wolf Blitzer Reports is brought to you by Genuity, managed internet services to keep your network secure.
Great. Another network problem.
Someone left the firewall door open again.
Wasn't me.
Access? I'm access, not security.
I thought security is everyone's problem.
Legacy. Legacy.
You're not the boss of me.
Okay, good.
Hold on. Who are you guys?
We're vendors.
That's good.
Want a more secure network? At Genuity, we manage and monitor every inch of your network. Genuity.
America Online makes it easy to do more. Like at AOL Keyword eBay, where you can get the hottest new things. You can buy brand new golf clubs to cruise the links in style. Buy a brand new handbag that holds everything. Or the latest PC to connect you to the world. Get great deals on millions of new items. You can bid or save time and buy it now. Get brand new anything you want, anytime you want. At eBay on America Online. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
He had a heart attack. He gets the care he needs. He recovers and goes back to work.
Or he had a heart attack. The medical bills pile up. He goes bankrupt.
When you're uninsured, life turns out differently.
39 million Americans without health insurance. 8 out of 10 are in working families. Now organizations are coming together, seeking solutions that get more Americans insured.
CoveringTheUninsured.org. Log on, learn more.
Let's get America covered.
Hello, Moto.
is if the computed f is greater than the value of f for 1 and k degrees of freedom exceeded with probability. Hello, Moto.
Tonight, 6 months later, take a look at how the attack on the Pentagon has changed the way our military does business. Live from the Pentagon. Then investigating the attacks, what we've learned so far, and what lies ahead on The Point. Tonight on CNN.
6 months later, a day of remembrance and reassessment. Despite all the new security measures, are we really any safer than we were before 9/11? We'll ask New York Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. And why should the government compensate the victims of 9/11 and not the victims of Oklahoma City? That's our second debate. Plus a special top of the week news alert. I'm Bill Press, back in just a moment with Bob Novak and Crossfire after Wolf Blitzer brings us the latest.
This is Jessica on Tuesday afternoon.
Since the afternoon this morning.
This is Jessica's college fund.
The numbers are still
on Tuesday afternoon. Because her parents work with a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch.
I got 62%.
Are you listening here? Who helps them create a comprehensive plan for Jessica's education, as well as their retirement and a second home. So Jessica's parents can focus on her goals, while their money does the same.
It's all about efficiency.
It's your thing. Do what you want to do. We're going to the fair. I can't tell you who to sock it to.
It's my other set of wheels.
Gets me to class.
I'm going to see my boyfriend.
We went to the fair, all right.
Public transportation, wherever life takes you.
America Online is all I need.
All of my friends and family are on AOL. Very easy to use.
You've got mail.
I love instant messages.
AOL is really quick.
They have all the latest music.
I love AOL.
America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1.
Philosophy 101? Not today. Grad school? Later. Taking the bar? Maybe someday. The AIM College Savings Plan lets you invest up to $250,000 tax deferred. So when they are thinking about college, you won't have to. See your financial advisor. Your goals, our discipline. AIM.
Tonight, 6 months later, take a look at how the attack on the Pentagon has changed the way our military does business. Live from the Pentagon. Then investigating the attacks, what we've learned so far, and what lies ahead on The Point. Tonight on CNN.
Welcome back. The deadly wave of violence in the Middle East has claimed yet more victims. At least 13 Palestinians were killed in a firefight with Israeli forces. The violence erupted after Israeli tanks and soldiers moved into a Palestinian refugee camp in Gaza. At the same time, now you're seeing live pictures of Israeli tanks that have entered the West Bank city of Ramallah. According to one source, the tanks were moving in the direction of the El Amari refugee camp. We'll continue to follow both of these military assaults in the coming hours. But that's all the time we have tonight. Please join me again tomorrow, twice at both 5 and 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back at the top of the hour in 30 minutes with Live from the Pentagon. Until then, thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon. Crossfire begins right now.
Tonight, 6 months after 9/11, is America any safer? And can the Big Apple prevent the next terrorist attack? Then, for victims, is it need or greed? Can the government put a price tag on human life?
Live from Washington, Crossfire. On the left, Bill Press. On the right, Robert Novak. In the Crossfire, New York City Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. And later, Susan Herman, Executive Director of the National Center for Victims of Crime, and George Mason University Law Professor Michael Krauss.
Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. Today marked the passage of 6 months since the terrorist attack on America. And in ceremonies in New York, Washington, and elsewhere, there was remembered the heroism and the outrage. In Washington, Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge promised a new and more rational system of terrorism alerts. But tough questions persist. Are we really any safer than we were 6 months ago? Is New York better protected now than it was then? Or have Americans just been given a lot of soft soap? We're asking Raymond W. Kelly, newly installed in his second hitch as police commissioner of the city of New York. Often referred to as a cop's cop, Ray Kelly served 31 years on the city's police force, first becoming commissioner in 1992. He headed the U.S. Customs Service during the Clinton administration. Bill Press.
Commissioner Kelly, good evening.
Good evening, Bill.
And I want to tell you, as we begin our conversation this evening, we're going to show from time to time here during our Crossfire tonight the live pictures from New York that show those towers of light, that fantastic new memorial representing the World Trade Center towers that were lit for the first time tonight. So, Commissioner, let me ask you, since 9/11, you know, we've been told we're all alert, we're all on guard, we're all working together to prevent against future terrorist attacks. But we've also learned that last October, the FBI got some information that there was going to be a nuclear attack on the city of New York last October. They didn't tell you about it, did they, Commissioner?
Well, I wasn't in office then, but I think we're doing a much better job of communicating now. I think we are safer. Of course, there's no guarantees. I think the national intelligence gathering entities are doing a much better job, particularly resulting from our operations in Afghanistan. We are working more closely with the federal authorities, no question about it. We're communicating on a daily basis. We're training our officers to do a better job of responding to another terrorist attack if, God forbid, one happens.
Well,
yes.
I don't know how you can say that, Commissioner. I mean, there was this, if you weren't in office then, but there was this, they said, the FBI again, they say there's a nuclear attack planned in the city of New York. They didn't notify the New York Police Department, did not notify the governor, did not notify the mayor, did not notify the state police, did not notify the U.S. senators, so nothing has changed. They're still not communicating.
No, well, they are communicating. I think there actually was some confusion about that event. Again, I'm hearing conflicting stories.
They didn't tell anybody, Commissioner. All the people from New York have said, even Mayor Rudy Giuliani said, he should have been told. Governor Pataki said he should have been told.
Well, let's accept that. I think it's changed, and clearly we're communicating now on a much better basis. And I've met with Director Mueller. I've met with the new FBI Assistant Director who's taking over in New York. We have an excellent relationship. We have a strengthened Joint Terrorist Task Force, which is made up of FBI agents and New York City detectives. It now reports essentially directly to me through a retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General Frank Labuti that we brought on board to address our counterterrorism issues. So let's assume your position is correct, that there was a lack of communication in October. It's much better today.
Ray Kelly, a recent CNN USA Today Gallup poll asked the question of Americans whether they think terrorism is likely in the U.S. in the next few weeks. In September, after the terrorist attacks, 66% thought it was likely. Today, only 52% think it's likely. In other words, a 50-50 proposition. Is that realistic? Is it too optimistic, or is it too pessimistic?
Well, to the extent that shows people starting to forget about September 11th, which I can understand may happen in some quarters of the country away from New York, I think it shows cause for concern. We're at war. I think we're going to be at war for a long time. So I would be concerned if people think that somehow the threat has lessened. And if we're very successful in Afghanistan, I still think there's an awful lot of people out there that want to do us harm. So I'm concerned if that poll indicates that people think for some reason that the threat is lessening.
But, Commissioner, you're a sophisticated public servant. You've held high public office. Surely the American people cannot be kept on this high state of anxiety, particularly when they get so many false alarms from the government, when the Attorney General says we're going to have an alert, and then nothing happens, and they don't tell exactly what the alert is. Isn't it impossible to keep the American people all that revved up and worried about the terrorists coming over the hill next week?
Well, I think we have to do a better job of handling these alerts, and Governor Ridge, I think, is in the process of doing that. We need some sort of qualitative assessment on these risks, these risk alerts. We simply just can't put them out there, and that's I think, the announcement that's going to be made officially tomorrow by Governor Ridge and the President. But you're right. I mean, it is, again, another cause for concern. We can't simply say, be on the alert at a high state of readiness without any more specific information than we've been given.
Well, Commissioner, I want to ask you about that system because Governor Ridge actually has been talking about it for some time, and it's going to be, as we understand, officially announced tomorrow. There'll be 5 different levels. You start at the lowest, green, then go to blue, then to yellow, then to orange, and then to red. Governor Ridge spoke to the National League of Cities today, and here's how he explained what that means. Let's listen to him, please. Governor Ridge.
Credible information we will share, but it can be shared in the context of a national framework, national language that says if we, based on information, that if based on our information, this is the level of threat, then you should be prepared in a corresponding way to respond to that level.
Now, I'm not really sure what he says there, but can you tell me and the American people how we should react differently between a blue alert and an orange alert?
Well, we're going to have to work on that ourselves. That is local government. We're going to have to get, I guess, a clearer definition from the governor and his announcement tomorrow. But then we're going to have to develop a plan where we respond. One of the issues with local law enforcement is we have limited resources, so we have to know when and where and what the credibility of the threat is before we use these limited resources. We need more specific information. Hopefully this system will give us that, but we're going to have to make an assessment ourselves. Let's see what tomorrow's announcement brings.
Right, Kelly. The New York cops and the FBI have been fighting with each other for ages, you know that. And you people claim you don't get the information from Washington. You say things that have improved, but my sources say they've got a long way to go when you're really going to get a good, steady flow of information from Washington. Do you agree with that?
No, I think we are getting good information now. I think it will improve. Again, I've talked to Director Mueller. I think the real issue is getting information in the first place. I think our intelligence gathering community has to do a more effective job of providing that information. I believe that the FBI and the Justice Department are certainly now willing to share that information. We have to work on the channels. We have to streamline it a little bit, but the real challenge is getting that information in the first place.
All right. Commissioner Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck keeping the people of New York safe in your new job, your second turn at this job. And next up, we're going to follow the money. Should the government be in the business of compensating victims of terrorism? And if so, why New York City and not Oklahoma City?
I want to be pampered by natives.
I want to taste something exotic.
I want to get closer to my children.
I want to...
For special offers on vacation packages, log on now to universalorlando.com. A vacation from the ordinary.
This tax season, millions of Americans who use tax preparation software are going to bed early thanks to IRS eFile. It's accurate, secure, fast. Just sign electronically and hit the send button.
And what do we get?
And you get your refund in half the time. So delete the paperwork and hit send with the IRS e-file and get some sleep.
Okay, let's do one-year predictions. You first.
I predict you'll be on the menu.
Ooh, zinger. You got me. Come on.
Dow, 5,000. NASDAQ, 800.
Ooh, interesting. Wrong, but interesting. Get this. Dow, 25,000. NASDAQ, 8,000. Give or take $1,000.
Or 10.
You know the difference between you and me?
Yeah, common sense.
No, you're a pessimist. Nobody likes a pessimist.
Nobody likes a talking steak either.
No matter which way you think the market will go, Ameritrade can give you an edge. With a fast trading site and a 10-second guarantee. Qualified market trades that take longer than 10 seconds to execute are commission-free. Limitations apply. Open a cash account with $1,000 and get 25 internet equity trades commission-free. Go to Ameritrade.com.
Hey, aren't you going to leave us hip?
Tipping is for cows.
She endured rape, murder, depression, and more. In a very rare interview, hear legendary singer Connie Francis tell her amazing story of tragedy and survival. Tonight, 9 Eastern on Larry King Live. Then, on a day of looking back, we'll also bring you the courageous stories of those moving forward, of people pulling together to rebuild their lives. Plus, a view of Ground Zero few have seen on a special news night with Aaron Brown, beginning at 9 Eastern on CNN tonight.
This is a medicine. These are the cells in your body. Take most medicines and they scatter throughout your body to every cell. But right now, America's pharmaceutical company researchers are creating new smart medicines. They can ignore healthy cells and go straight to the disease to fight illnesses like leukemia, arthritis, and heart disease. Soon, there will be a lot more of these smart medicines. You can bank on it.
Crossfire. For 6 months, it's been a real tug-of-war between families of the victims of 9/11 and the government over who gets how much from the Victims' Compensation Fund. But that begs the question, should the federal government even be in the business of compensating victims? And how can they justify, for example, offering a minimum $250,000 to families who lost loved ones on 9/11 and nothing to families of those killed in Oklahoma City, or nothing to families of servicemen killed in Afghanistan fighting the war on terror? Good questions. As we look again at that newly lit memorial in New York City, let's get some answers. Bob?
Susan Herman, I was shocked this morning watching CNN on how far this compensation thing is going when former New York City Fire Commissioner Van Essen revealed, I don't think anybody had heard this before, that there are families of firefighters. They're getting their money from the fire fund. They're getting all kinds of compensation, who have brought suit against the fire chief for ordering firemen into the buildings where they then died. Isn't that what they were paid to do? And isn't that this whole compensation question run amok?
You know, I have to say I'm not familiar with that lawsuit, but I think this compensation debate that we're hearing in this country has gotten a little bit confused about why the public may be angry and why victims may be angry. There are different reasons why people feel that the compensation that victims are getting is appropriate, and it has to be seen in the context of how this fund was created. This fund was created as part of an airline bailout. Victims who access this fund, the particular September 11th compensation fund, are asked to give up their right to sue, which is really something we have hardly ever done in the history of this country when we offer victims a government benefit. We hardly have ever said, you have to give up your right to sue to access a government benefit. And for those who are suing, they've capped the liability of the airlines and many other parties.
But with all due respect, Ms. Herman, that I don't know whether that was a lawyer's answer or a bureaucrat's answer, or maybe it was a bureaucratic lawyer's answer. But isn't this just a question of a kind of a malady of people who have lost their lives, but going and demanding more? Bill even mentioned, says the families of servicemen in Afghanistan, should they get compensation?
These guys signed up to be soldiers. I mean, soldiers die in wars. I can't understand what's going on.
Well, you know, if you look at the victims of September 11th, there are many individuals. And you look at victims of crime generally, and you look at what we do as a country for victims of crime generally, it's really very little. And as a country, as communities, as families, as a country as a whole, we pay an enormous price for not helping victims of crime rebuild their lives. Victims of crime who have been traumatized tend to suffer increased alcohol and drug abuse, decreased work performance, can't function on the job, can't function in school, often are more suicidal or depressed than the general public. We are paying a price for not helping victims, and we should be helping them.
Let me jump in here, Michael Krause, and you've written in the Wall Street Journal about this, but I want to get back to 9/11. I mean, we have heard over and over today, and I think it's true, that the world is different since 9/11. We will never be the same since 9/11. We did not hear that after Oklahoma City. We did not hear that after 1993 and the World Trade Center. I mean, I think most Americans accept this as a uniquely horrible event in our history. Doesn't that argue for a unique form of compensation to these victims alone?
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it's actually seen as a unique event as far as compensation is concerned. In today's Wall Street Journal, there's an article, I think, in the second section about victims of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, about somebody who was shot by terrorists crossing the Brooklyn Bridge 10 years ago, who feels he's just as deserving of compensation as the folks who were killed on 9/11. As far as compensation is concerned, it seems to me that there are two types of compensation that a free country provides. One is through insurance, through contracts that you can purchase. The other is through tort law, and it's the bad guy who pays, not the government who pays.
So my understanding, your position is zero compensation from the government for the victims of 9/11, correct?
Unless the government's proven to be at fault.
Well, that's my point. I mean, when you look at this, these terrorists were in this country legally, government agencies let them in, got on the planes legally, government agencies let them on the planes. They were on the FBI wanted list, the FBI didn't nab them. So, see, there is, it seems, the argument could be made, some negligence on the part of government, therefore some responsibilities to compensate. Correct?
You've got to distinguish between policy and the execution of policy.
I'm talking about execution.
Well, part of this was policy. Some of these people were in the country. Maybe there weren't enough border guards. Maybe there wasn't enough checking at the visa station. That's policy, and that's covered by sovereign immunity. If an agent was negligent, yes, there should be payment through tort. But when there's payment through tort, you don't deduct the pension plans. You don't deduct the life insurance. That's what they're doing now. Their plan's a mishmash. It makes no sense, philosophically at all.
I want to, speaking of philosophy, Susan Herman, I want to read to you, and we're going to put it up on the screen, something that Governor Frank Keating of Oklahoma, who got a lot of credit for the way he handled the Oklahoma City bombing, something he said the other day. He said, quote, "It seems unreal that an arm of the federal government would unwittingly embrace the anti-American sentiment of placing price tags on life," unquote. Isn't that what you're doing?
It has absolutely nothing to do with placing a price tag on human life. This compensation fund is about reimbursing victims for specific financial losses. It has nothing to do with valuing a human life. There are economic losses, and they're delineated, and there are non-economic losses, and they're delineated. It has nothing to do with saying what is a whole life worth. Nobody is using that language. No victim is saying, this is what my husband or my wife was worth. They're talking about reimbursement for specific things that they are outlined in this fund and in any other compensation fund that we have.
But isn't it true that you want every victim of crime so compensated? If one of us were to go out in this very tough neighborhood around the CNN studios and get murdered, you want somehow or another the government to pay? I mean, that's tough luck, but you know life is unfair, as John F. Kennedy said.
Right now, we have a state compensation funds all over the country. All 50 states have victim compensation fund. The average award for a homicide survivor right now is less than $4,000. Is that really what we want when we've seen how they suffer? I don't think so.
Michael, we're almost out of time. Just a quick question here. Isn't what happened here? there's some 3,000 victims. There would be probably 6,000 and some lawsuits out of this if we didn't do something like this. I mean, what the federal government has said, we want to do away with all these lawsuits against the New York City Police Department or airport security or whatever. Therefore, we're going to compensate in return for no lawsuits. It's a pragmatic approach to a problem. Right?
No, wrong. Eliminating frivolous lawsuits, fine, let's do it. There's no reason to add compensation that's not due from the government. Compensation is due from other parties, the bad guys, private insurance companies. There were $2 billion, over $2 billion given by Americans through the goodness of their hearts. There's lots of ways to give other than taking money from taxpayers.
I'm afraid it has to be the last word. Michael Krause, thank you. Susan Herman, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Crossfire News Alert. The fascinating news beneath the news.
You're watching Crossfire. Next, CNN takes you directly to where the news is being made on Live From. Then it's The Point. You can depend on CNN tonight.
All across Southern California, beautiful new kitchens and baths share a secret, a trade secret of the finest home builders, Pacific Sales, where the kitchen and bath experts help you choose from the biggest display of appliances in Southern California. It's where designers and contractors go to find the most extensive selection and latest designs. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Bath Centers, the world's best appliances at the lowest prices.
I already paid the cable bill.
I know. That was the mortgage.
See you after work.
Bye, honey.
What?
Don't mail your cable bill. Pay it online at Cox.com. Sign up for Easy Pay and have your monthly bill automatically paid from your bank account or credit card. It's automatic, secure, and effortless.
There's one thing for certain, I'll love you till I die. And if you're ever hurting, I'll run right to your side.
Around here, things aren't always what you'd expect. Like the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. It costs a lot less than you'd think.
Create an extraordinary kitchen. Discover Viking at Pacific Sales. Viking and Pacific Sales. Let your imagination run wild. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Bath Centers throughout Southern California.
This is CNN. I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting from just outside the Pentagon. Lieutenant Kevin Schaefer worked just behind me in the Navy's command center. 6 months ago, he was the only person in his office to survive the attack. His story and others coming up at the top of the hour on Live from the Pentagon.
America Online makes it easy to do more. Like at AOL Keyword eBay, where you can get the hottest new things. You can buy brand new golf clubs to cruise the links in style. Buy a brand new handbag that holds everything. Or the latest PC to connect you to the world. Get great deals on millions of new items. You can bid or save time and buy it now. Get brand new anything you want, anytime you want. At eBay on America Online. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
Hello, Moto.
Device formerly known as a Cellmoto.
Command your motor. Sound becomes intelligent. Silicon is if the computed F is greater than the value of F or 1, and K degrees of freedom exceeded with probability. Hello, Moto.
Hey, Dad, my tuition's due. How much do you need? About $8,500.
What if getting money from your home equity was this painless? Well, thanks to Ditech.com, it may be. Just log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED now. Our whole application process is fast and easy.
Hey, Mom, we need another roll.
We'll arrange an appraiser, notary, and even deliver to your door. Ditech.com, your mortgage solution delivered.
I love you, 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 I love you.
If you're working to support yourself and have one or more children living with you, you may qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit. Think of it as a reward for doing one of life's most loving jobs. Visit our website or ask your tax preparer if you qualify. The EITC, you've earned it, so why not claim it? A message from the Internal Revenue Service, working to put service first.
I want to be pampered by natives.
I want to taste something exotic.
I want to get closer to my children.
I want to...
For special offers on vacation packages, log on now to universalorlando.com. A vacation from the ordinary.
Closed captioning for selected programs provided by Garlic, cholesterol's natural enemy.
Cholesterol concerns me, so this got my attention. Garlic has been clinically shown to help maintain normal cholesterol, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. Garlic, cholesterol's natural enemy.
Crossfire News Alert, where we report fascinating little stories you probably never even imagined. Saturday night was the white-tied gridiron dinner in Washington, where the press and the politicians try to be funny. Stealing the scene was Vice President Dick Cheney, who emerged from his undisclosed location to appear on the stage as to do the rumba, as the gridiron players sang, "There is a dark, secluded place, a Veep can sleep without a trace, and no one ever sees his face, Dick Cheney's hideaway." Is show business in the Vice President's future?
It may be in his future, but it's not in yours. All right, now, looking for a bargain vacation in New Bedford, Mass. You can get a room, bed, and 3 meals a day for only $5. Problem is, you have to commit a crime to qualify. That's what Sheriff Tom Hodgson says he's going to start charging prisoners in the county jail. $35 a week. This, in addition to charging them for haircuts, medical care, and transportation. In New Bedford, crime does not pay.
That's really,
criminals do.
That's really tough for a bleeding heart.
I know, $5? Whoa.
And this vital, gripping news you probably haven't heard until now. David Letterman is staying with CBS. Yes, he really is. Announcing it during the taping of tonight's program. Tough luck, ABC. And we can all hope it will make Dave happier, no longer having to make do on just $30 million a year.
Question is, will Ted Koppel stay at ABC? Well, we'll find out. Finally, after years of protesting teams with names like the Braves or the Redskins, one group of Native Americans has decided to get even, so American Indian students at the University of Northern Colorado have named their intramural basketball team the Fighting Whiteys. They've even adopted a white man as a mascot, and they wear jerseys with the slogan, "Everything's gonna be all white." No word yet whether the National Association of White People will smoke the peace pipe or hit the warpath. Bob, you probably like the Redskins.
I love the Redskins. I've been a Redskin fan for 30 years. Not only that I love Chief Illiniwek dancing his way from my University of Illinois Illini as they go into the NCAA tournament. May Chief Illiniwek and the Redskins fight. You know, I'll tell you something else.
No, come on, Bob.
I'll tell you something else. The ordinary rank and file Indians love it. It's just the intellectuals who don't.
Rename them the Fighting Whiteys. All right, that's it for now, folks. Love to hear from your email. Hear from you with email to crossfire@cnn.com. For me, Bob, and Tucker. That's it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm Bill Press. Good night.
From the right, I'm Robert Novak. Join us again next time for another edition of Crossfire.
I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting from just outside the Pentagon, where 6 months after the September 11th attacks, there's no let-up in the pace of reconstruction. And for the U.S. military, it appears there's no let-up in the mission against terrorism. That's our focus tonight on Live from the Pentagon.
Target Pentagon.
Even as we were watching what was unfolding up in New York City, never thought that we were in any kind of danger, any kind of risk.
Lieutenant Kevin Schaefer was the only person in his office space to survive the attack.
There were people in front of me, behind me, to the left of me, to the right of me, and they didn't make it.
From the ashes, hope springs. With the coming of spring, the Pentagon building is rising.
6 months after the attack, a rising phoenix at the Pentagon.
The job is basically the same. The feeling is what's different. They destroy something, but we're gonna come back again.
For America's military, a changed world and a new mission.
Every nation should know that for America, the war on terror is not just a policy. It's a pledge.
Live from the Pentagon, Wolf Blitzer.
Just behind me stands the Pentagon, where 6 months ago today, along with the World Trade Center, America came under attack. What was then a site of devastation is now seen as a site of triumph. Reconstruction of the Pentagon is ahead of schedule. In the next half hour, we'll look at that recovery, both of the building and of those who survived that horrible day. And we'll focus on the military's new mission. First, to the day's events. The United States paused today to pay tribute to victims of September 11th. President Bush led the solemn tributes with a memorial on the White House lawn, saying the world marks a terrible day, but also affirms a just and viable cause.
September the 11th was not the beginning of global terror, but it was the beginning of the world's concerted response. History will know that day not only as a day of tragedy, but as a day of decision. When the civilized world was stirred to anger and to action. And the terrorists will remember September 11th as the day their reckoning began.
It's no understatement to say that the world changed September 11th, and that change was palpable here at the Pentagon headquarters of the U.S. military. In many ways, the tragedy energized the building and made Donald Rumsfeld one of the most recognizable and perhaps one of the most popular defense secretaries ever. CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre reports.
Our Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld.
This was Donald Rumsfeld at the Pentagon September 10th, the day before the attacks.
So today we declare war on bureaucracy, not people.
Less than 24 hours later, as Rumsfeld was helping to carry the wounded out of the collapsing building, battling red tape was the last thing on his mind. Suddenly, the enemy was terror.
We'll use overt and covert military efforts as well as every diplomatic, economic, financial, and law enforcement resource at our command. We will not stop until the terrorist networks are destroyed.
The pre-September 11th Pentagon was a hotbed of inter-service rivalries as generals and admirals jockeyed to save pet projects on the chopping block. Big-ticket programs like the Marine Corps' troubled V-22 tilt-rotor aircraft, the Army's overweight Crusader howitzer, and the Air Force's pricey F-22 stealth fighter were facing an uncertain future. But in the aftermath of the attacks, the only debate within the administration has been over how many more billions to pour into defense.
Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, this patient, this resolved nation will win the first war of the 21st century.
In a town hall meeting last week, Rumsfeld returned to his pre-September 11th theme.
I said then, and I believe now, that the modernization of the department is an imperative.
But critics argue he has abandoned the radical reform he once seemed to be pushing.
He has much more support now than he did then, and the opportunity is to take money saved and make certain that the warfighting capabilities of the Pentagon and the procurement accounts are fully funded, but the bureaucracy is reduced.
The changes since September 11th extend well beyond the Pentagon's internal workings. In his travels, Rumsfeld has cemented new friendships with such unlikely allies as the former Soviet republics of Uzbekistan, Georgia, and Kyrgyzstan. That's the upside of September's tragedy, say Pentagon officials.
And so perhaps, as tragic as it is that those people lost their lives on September 11th, perhaps more people's lives will be saved as a result of it.
The Bush administration continues to look for ways to curtail U.S. involvement in open-ended peacekeeping missions, but no longer is there any illusion that will lessen demands on the U.S. military. In fact, with the war on terrorism expected to last as long as the Cold War, the U.S. will likely be involved in more countries, not less. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, The Pentagon.
The drive to reconstruct the damaged Pentagon building is moving at lightning speed, fueled by a strong resolve to defy the terrorist plans to destroy the symbol of America's military might. Today, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld toured the construction site to mark the rapid progress being made and to praise the military spirit of determination.
From the ashes, hope springs. With the coming of spring, the Pentagon building is rising, and thanks to the truly outstanding effort of the workers, repairs are ahead of schedule. Indeed, from the outside, the building looks like it's almost new.
CNN Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr looks back at the day tragedy struck the Pentagon and the resolve to rise from the ashes.
American Airlines Flight 77 came in low over the Pentagon helipad, slamming into the West Front, killing 189 people, including the 5 hijackers. The building would burn for days, but Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld was determined to keep things running right from the start.
The Pentagon's functioning. It'll be in business tomorrow.
Plans began almost immediately to overcome the devastation. By mid-November, 400,000 square feet had been demolished and Project Phoenix was underway. The Pentagon was rising from the ashes. Now it is a construction site of triumph, rebuilding the spirit as well as the limestone and steel.
The job is basically the same. The feeling is what's different. They destroy something, but we're going to come back again.
Lee Evey is in charge of the $700 million project.
When we went to them at Christmas and New Year's, and we said we want to give you 2 days off each of those days, you know, 2 days at Christmas, 2 days at New Year's, and the workers came back and said, no, we don't want to take any time off. We want to work straight through.
A clock now marks the countdown to the one-year anniversary. The motto, "Let's roll," the workers' testament to the heroism of the hijacked passengers. For the military personnel inside the Pentagon, the last 6 months have seen them deal with the challenge of the war while remembering their comrades. Everyone inside the Navy Operations Center was killed. It is only in the last few weeks it is back up and fully running, manned by friends of those who did not make it out that day. Captain Robert Bauer replaced his friend, who was director of the Operations Center on September 11th.
It gives me some consolation in the thought that that I am his successor, maybe an imperfect successor to the job that he was doing, but at least in my own mind, I feel like my sense of purpose here is vindication.
6 months from now, on September 11th, the exterior of the Pentagon is expected to be finished. For the construction workers and the military, a huge milestone on the road from tragedy to triumph. Barbara Starr, CNN, The Pentagon.
The task of repairing the Pentagon building is mammoth, but it's easier than repairing the lives of survivors deeply scarred by the September 11th attacks. CNN medical correspondent Rhea Blakey has the story of one man who barely escaped the attack with his life and is now enduring a personal struggle to recover.
Lieutenant Kevin Schaefer was standing in the Naval Command Center when Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon.
I thought that was the safest place in the world.
He was the only person in his office space to survive.
Even as we were watching what was unfolding up in New York City, never thought that we were in any kind of danger, any kind of risk.
Associated Press is reporting that it was a plane that crashed at the Pentagon.
Within seconds, his illusion shattered.
There were people in front of me, behind me, to the left of me, to the right of me, and they didn't make it.
He's home now after 3 months in the hospital, more than a dozen operations. Kevin says his biggest adjustment was getting comfortable with his altered appearance. His wife Blanca has also faced major adjustments, including finding a new definition for normal life.
When we got home, trying to get back to that normal life that we had before, that was the really difficult part. I wasn't running on adrenaline anymore.
Kevin spends his days in physical rehab, either at Washington Hospital Center or at home on this equipment donated by the American Red Cross.
I am still in quite a bit of pain. It's a day-to-day struggle.
The public show of support has been tremendous. Flags and cards, an eagle, even a football. A promise from President Bush to play golf is what motivates Kevin now to keep getting stronger. No date has been set for their game. Kevin Schaefer is medically retired from the Navy. He has no plans to return to work in that building, but he would like to work for the Office of Homeland Security. You see, Kevin believes his life was spared for a reason, and he'd like to spend the rest of his life working toward making sure that no one else ever has to go through what he went through on September 11th at that building ever again. Rhea Blakey, CNN, Washington.
Remembering why they're there.
Got a sister that work at the Pentagon, so it really hit close to home.
For some American troops on the front lines, this mission's personal. A live report from Afghanistan is next. And later.
There was a huge plume of smoke which continues to rise from the west side of the Pentagon. The building is being evacuated.
A look back at a day that lives in infamy. We're back in a moment.
Listen, I'm your idea. I could be powerful, but you know, there are other ideas out there. So what makes me different? You're gonna actually do something with me. Because it's not how many ideas you have, it's how many you make happen.
Whether you've got a big idea or you're seeking one, Accenture helps turn innovation into results. Accenture, innovation delivered.
For powerful digital imaging systems that let you print, sort, duplex, and staple right from your desktop. And people who are fast on their feet. Think inside the box. Think Savin.
What's up, Mr. Foster?
I go in for a PC, I come out with a migraine. You ask for this, all they have is that. Makes your head spin.
Well, your computer quandary is easily solved by the folks at Dell. Just call or go online. They'll help you figure it out, so you know what you're getting and what you're getting it for.
So none of this?
Nope, just the perfect PC for you at the right price for you.
Oh, I'm feeling better already.
Good.
Steven, isn't this your father's car?
No.
Right now, a complete Dimension desktop with an Intel Pentium 4 processor delivering performance where you need it most is just $799. There's great deals on notebooks too. And why wait? Because for a limited time, you can get free shipping.
You're gonna say it, aren't you?
Oh, he knows.
Easy to buy, easy to own, easy as Dell. Dell PCs use Intel Pentium 4 processors.
This is Aaron Brown. On A Day for Looking Back, we'll bring you the courageous stories of those people moving forward, rebuilding lives, and a view of Ground Zero few have ever seen. A special news night, 10 o'clock Eastern on CNN Tonight.
CNN Tuesday. You've seen his movies, but you've probably never seen this side of Dennis Quaid. How did he kick the coke habit? What's life really like after Meg? Find out in a rare one-on-one with Larry King Live. CNN Tuesday, 9 Eastern.
Since September 11th, we've all come together as a tight group and become very patriotic, and we're all ready to come over here and just do our job and do what it takes to justify everything that's happened.
It really changed my life because I'm from Washington, D.C., and I got a sister that work at the Pentagon, so it really hit close to home.
The September 11th attacks on the United States were remembered today around the world, including in Afghanistan's capital. U.S. Marines and workers at the U.S. Embassy gathered at the compound in Kabul for a simple ceremony. The U.S. flag was lowered to half-staff to mark the occasion. After a lull in the action, Operation Anaconda resumed with a fury today in eastern Afghanistan. Our senior international correspondent Nick Robertson joins us now live from the city of Gardez near the battlefront. Nick?
Wolf, it's already Tuesday morning here in Afghanistan. We've seen coalition aircraft flying overhead through the night. We've heard intense activity by reconnaissance drone aircraft flying over the plains just south of here. And during the day, Monday, yesterday, Afghan time, we saw intense bombardment of an area around Shari-Kot. That was by B-1 bombers and also A-10 bunker buster aircraft. We also saw reinforcements, about 300 Afghan fighters moving towards the front lines, along with tanks and armored artillery pieces, reinforcing those frontline positions that will block off any Al-Qaeda and Taliban retreat from the Shari-Kot area, the focus of Operation Anaconda. Wolf?
Nick, you were in Afghanistan, one of the few Western journalists, if any others, on September 11th. To reflect on what has changed on the ground there since that day.
The biggest change has to be to the liberty of the people of Afghanistan. They have much freer lives now, and certainly people here tell us they see the international involvement and the focus on their country as an opportunity to bring peace after 23 years of war, and they hope that all the international effort will also bring in international relief funds that will aid in rebuilding the country. The biggest thing people here would like to see is the demise of the warlords and a return to a peaceful country with a strong central government. Wolf?
Nick Robertson reporting live from Gardez in Afghanistan. Thank you very much. And up next, symbols of the fallen towers. An update from Ground Zero 6 months after the attack on the World Trade Center.
Also ahead.
Just before 10 o'clock, parts of the building began peeling away. People started screaming. The police began yelling, "Run, run."
Scenes from September 11th, the horror, and the heroes. We're back in 2 minutes.
America Online makes it easy to do more. Like at AOL Keyword eBay, where you can get the hottest new things. You can buy brand new golf clubs to cruise the links in style. Buy a brand new handbag that holds everything. Or the latest PC to connect you to the world. Get great deals on millions of new items. You can bid or save time and buy it now. Get brand new anything you want, anytime you want. At eBay on America Online. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
Everyone knows America Online makes it easy to keep in touch with loved ones, send instant messages to friends, get news, weather, and sports. But did you also know you can get WebMD, America's leading source of health information online?
Keyword WebMD. My whole family got the flu and I got help on WebMD.
WebMD is the health site that I trust the most.
AOL has stuff you won't find anywhere else.
WebMD, another great reason to sign up for AOL now. America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
Coldwell Banker, we're up on our toes to make sure that the house you sell shows. With our expert advice, you'll get the best price and we'll be with you each step till you close.
A Coldwell Banker agent is your perfect partner. They'll leap at the chance to find the right buyer for you, and no one moves faster than they do.
Coldwell Banker, we sure know our stuff.
You're watching live from. Next, it's analysis on The Point, followed by TV's best interviews on Larry King Live. You can depend on CNN tonight.
Kyocera Media, FKM Copier Products. One smart partnership for reliable, cost-effective document solutions. Kyocera Media, the most productive and versatile lineup of both digital copiers and printers. Supported by FKM Copier Products, a strong local company with experienced people who understand connected digital technology. Kyocera Media and FKM Copier Products. One smart decision.
If you build one of the most dependable automobiles in America, add features like sporty alloy wheels, CD player, a remote entry system, power moonroof, and offer it at a very unexpected price, there's no telling how far people will go to see it. The Accord Special Edition from Honda. Now lease a 2002 Accord Special Edition for $249 a month for 36 months.
This is CNN.
Good evening.
evening. I'm Anderson Cooper in New York. Tonight on The Point, we'll take a look at where the investigation now stands. We'll focus on what the world has learned about the September 11th plot and on the worldwide hunt for sleeper cells and fleeing members of al-Qaeda's terror network. The Point begins in less than 10 minutes. Now back to Live from the Pentagon.
A tribute of light is now shining where the Twin Towers once stood. An update from Ground Zero and a look at a day that will never be forgotten when we come back.
If you're looking for the most dependable medium-duty truck, consider the reliable line from Mitsubishi Fuso. Now get up to $2,000 cash back through March 30th. Mitsubishi Fuso trucks handle virtually anything your business can throw at them, on road or off, with up to $2,000 cash back thrown in. Mitsubishi Fuso, the right truck for the job.
Honey, how much money did the contractor say he needed?
$7,500.
What if getting money from your home equity was this painless? Well, thanks to Ditech.com, it may be. Just log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED now. Apply to refinance and get cash out for home improvements or anything else. We'll arrange an appraiser, notary, and even deliver to your door. Ditech.com, your mortgage solution delivered.
I sacrifice my weekends printing high-volume jobs and never get a thank you. He says things like win-win situation and gets a company car. If only I had better room presence.
Toshiba copiers make you look good.
This is my masterpiece. It's a worm. Blows right through your firewall. It's like a crazy cocktail, a hybrid. Gets in through web, email, chat, antivirus. Nah, I can't keep up. Can't get in one way, get in 5 others. It's like a symphony that will change the world. No one will know it's me.
In a world where there's a different threat every day, you need a different kind of security. Internet security systems.
I want to be pampered by natives.
I want to taste something exotic.
I want to get closer to my children. I want to...
For special offers on vacation packages, log on now to universalorlando.com. A vacation from the ordinary.
Reconsidering the axis of evil? I'm Paula Zahn. On the next American Morning, President Bush's axis of evil speech caught some allies in the war on terror by surprise. What's he doing to make things right? That's tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern.
CNN.com and Akamai, the leader in delivering video and audio online, have come together to provide the latest breaking news and information. For the very best in video, streamed live or on demand by Akamai, go to CNN.com.
Time for you to get involved. Do you feel safer today than you did before September 11th? To take the quick vote, head to CNN.com. The AOL keyword is CNN. A reminder, this poll is not scientific.
Just as we've seen here, this day has been one of tearful memorials in New York. A short while ago, 2 powerful beams of light were turned on, aimed skyward to symbolize the fallen Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. The lights are scheduled to shine each night until April 13th. Earlier in New York's Battery Park, officials dedicated a 45,000-pound steel and bronze sculpture as a temporary memorial to the victims of the attack. The Sphere, as it's called, stood in the World Trade Center Plaza and was partially crushed by falling debris. For CNN's domestic viewers, Aaron Brown will have a full report tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern on Newsnight, about the lives forever changed by September 11th. In moments of crisis, confusion eventually gives way to clarity. We saw that on September 11th. The first plane crash looked like an accident to many people, but the second, third, and fourth crashes defined acts of terror. Here's a look back at the anatomy of a breaking story that changed the world forever.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
It was a jet, looked like a 2-engine jet.
You're talking about a large passenger commercial
Large
jet.
passenger commercial jet.
And the side of the World Trade Center exploded right when I looked up, and debris started falling. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Looks like 6, 7 floors were taken out, and there's more explosions right now. Hold on, people are running.
Hold on just a moment. We've got an explosion inside.
The building's exploding right now. You got people running up the street.
Okay.
Hold on, I'll tell you what's going on. Okay, hold on. The people here everybody's panicking.
Here is the tape. You see the plane coming in, and it blows into the building with the flames and the smoke billowing out. We have Ira Ferber, the former NTSB spokesman. You're watching these pictures as well with us, are you not?
Yeah, I'm with you on CNN. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area.
There is a report of a possible plane hijacking.
Before you know it, just kamikaze boom right into the other tower, and mass explosion, windows flying. It was horrible.
There was just pandemonium. There was no warning, no alarms, no anything. Everyone just raced from their desks.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
CNN has learned that at least one of the planes involved in this hit on the World Trade Center was an American Airlines 767 that took off from Boston.
There have been no claims of responsibility, and U.S. intelligence officials say they had no warning of anything like this coming along.
Now, Aaron, we can see over your left shoulder there the building still smoldering of the World Trade Center.
Well, it is a grotesque sight to look at from about 30 blocks away from where we are. Chris Plant, a CNN producer, is at the Pentagon, where there is a significant fire. Tell me what you know.
There was a huge plume of smoke which continues to rise from the west side of the Pentagon. The building is being evacuated.
Associated Press is reporting that it was a plane that crashed at the Pentagon. Bridges and tunnels coming into New York have been closed. We are also being told that the FAA has suspended takeoffs and landings.
The initial assumption, this official said, was that this had something to do, or at least they were looking into any possible connections with Osama bin Laden.
It has just been a huge explosion. We can see a billowing smoke rising. I'll tell you that I can't see that second tower, but there was a cascade of sparks and fire, and now it looks almost like a mushroom cloud explosion. That is about as frightening a scene as you will ever see. One of the most recognizable buildings in the country is gone.
It's the kind of moment you hope will never come.
Just before 10 o'clock, parts of the building began peeling away. People started screaming. The police began yelling, "Run, run," and thousands of people started running away from the buildings as they were falling.
We heard a big bang, and then we saw smoke coming out, and everybody started running out, and we saw the plane on the other side of the building, and there was smoke everywhere, and people are jumping out the windows.
And there's, you can see, the second tower, the front tower, the top portion of which is collapsing. Good Lord. There are no words.
And this final thought from a former Pentagon reporter. I suspect that anyone who ever worked in the building right behind me has the same thought whenever he or she visits this site. But for the grace of God, this could have been any of us. It's a haunting thought that keeps us focused on what this war against terrorism is all about. And that's it for Live from the Pentagon. I'm Wolf Blitzer. Thanks for joining us.
with Anderson Cooper.
The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice.
It's been 6 months. Tonight, where the investigation stands.
We've filled in more and more of the pieces of the puzzle.
What's to keep terrorists from striking again?
We believe that we are still targeted.
And what should come next in the war on terror?
6 months along. A short time in a long struggle. And our war on terror, we be judged by its finish, not by its start.
The Point. Now from New York, Anderson Cooper.
Good evening. As we all know, 6 months ago, a gaping hole was torn in this city's skyline. And worse, much worse, thousands of families were torn apart forever. Tonight, from the World Trade Center, one stood down there at the lower end of Manhattan. Beams of light now soar into space, high enough to be seen from 20 miles away. It is called the Tribute of Light. All day, people have been looking back at how the world has changed in the 6 months between September 11th and March 11th. For the next half hour, we're going to look at what the world has learned. To begin, CNN national correspondent Susan Candiati focuses on the investigation.
We know who hijacked the planes, the 19 men who turned airliners into flying bombs. But 6 months later, the man overseeing the government's 9/11 task force admits there are still holes in the case.
We may never know everybody who participated, but actually I'm encouraged by the fact that as we have pulled together information that comes globally to us, we've filled in more and more of the pieces of the puzzle.
Among the pieces, investigators are convinced the plan was hatched and brainstormed mostly in Western Europe and Malaysia, financed by Mideast sources, executed by terrorists trained in Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda camps and at U.S. flight schools. A plot carried out with remarkable secrecy. Prosecutors say don't take that as praise.
These are not people who are larger than life. They took advantage of the fact that something that was unthinkable on September 10th became unfortunately all too thinkable on September 11th.
But in the last 6 months, only one person directly linked to the attacks has been charged in the U.S. Frenchman Zacarias Moussaoui.
Moussaoui is charged with undergoing the same training, receiving the same funding, and pledging the same commitment to kill Americans.
Authorities still don't know for sure whether Moussaoui was meant to be the 20th hijacker. In August, a flight school in Minnesota alerted the FBI Moussaoui was so inept and intent on flying jumbo jets across the ocean, one instructor wondered whether he intended to use one as a bomb. He was jailed on immigration charges a month before the attacks. But the FBI, despite suspicions, learned nothing more. But who else was involved? Investigators say they linked Moussaoui and the hijackers to a money trail leading to the United Arab Emirates and on to Pakistan. Investigators believe hijacking ringleader Mohammed Atta's former roommate in Hamburg, Germany, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, was a paymaster. He and others have been charged as co-conspirators on international warrants. But
we don't know if they're dead or alive, whether they're buried in the rubble in Afghanistan,
or whether unknown 9/11 Confederates are hiding in plain sight.
The 4,000 agents that are still assigned to portions of the investigation are still following leads to determine whether or not there are any associates, financial supporters or others that are in the United States.
But while the FBI's 911 case is not closed, sources say those U.S. leads have virtually dried up. The focus has shifted to Germany and other parts of Western Europe. The FBI's primary mission now, preventing another September 11th.
We're not so much focused on making a criminal case as we are trying to understand what our national security risks are and then how we can harden American and our vital interest around the world from future hits.
Using national security as justification, the Attorney General rounded up more than 1,000 mostly Middle Eastern men last fall. 6 months later, hundreds remain behind bars. The Justice Department won't reveal most of their names. Civil rights activists are suing.
In a country that really prides itself on due process of law and on civil liberties, it's just indefensible.
After September 11th, America also found itself vulnerable to biological warfare. The anthrax letter attacks have stopped, but the FBI appears no closer to capturing the killer who claimed 5 lives and terrorized a nation.
I will tell you that we have no one person specifically that stands out above others at this juncture.
What does stand out is frustration, trying to solve both the anthrax and September 11th attacks. The FBI determined to get answers, unable to predict when that might be. Susan Candiotti, CNN, Washington.
Joining us now to talk about the September 11th investigation in Boston, Juliette Kayyem. She's a professor at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and a former member of the National Commission on Terrorism. And in Wilmington, Delaware, Lou Shaliro, before retiring, he was the assistant director of the FBI's New York office. Thanks very much for joining us, both of you. Juliette, I want to start off with you. As Susan Candiotti pointed out in her piece, only one person directly linked to the 9/11 attacks is in custody, Zacarias Moussaoui. He's the only one who's been charged in the U.S. 6 months after this horrible incident, is the investigation on track?
Probably not, or I guess, standing from the outsides, we need to put this in perspective. There's probably a lot of things that the FBI and the Department of Justice are doing that we're not hearing about, and we should give them the benefit of the doubt in that regard, disrupting cells, getting after people. But there's a lot of other things that seem a bit, I guess, nerve-wracking at this stage. I mean, nearly 6 months later, with still a couple hundred people being detained with no criminal charges against them, the interviewing of various people, these sort of broad brushes appear to have gone nowhere. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, where should we be concentrating our efforts? And it appears, as both the intro piece that you ran say and sort of what I've been talking to people down in D.C. about, it appears that a lot of those leads are not in America. They are in Western Europe, Latin America, and other places. So we should be expending all of our efforts on buttressing the law enforcement efforts of our allies, and maybe not even our allies, others, to try to catch people who were not only involved with September 11th, but of course are involved with financial underpinnings, with potential attacks in the future. So it's a mixed bag if we look at basically what's happening in America.
Lou, let me bring in you. As you look at this investigation, what do you see? How do you think it's going?
Well, I think certainly the first reaction of government and of course the FBI had to be to disrupt any potential acts both abroad and certainly in the United States. And I think for the most part they've been successful in being a disruptive influence to the Al-Qaeda organization. And I think that's critical. I think also as information is developed, both through Guantanamo Bay and from Afghanistan, further leads, both domestically and internationally, will be developed.
Well, Lou, let me ask you, you were with the FBI. Of the 3 cases that are pending now, Reed, Walker Lynn, and Moussaoui, none of them can be said to be broken by the Justice Department. What's your assessment? How is justice doing in this?
Well, I think you have to understand that the 19 defendants were killed in the attack. The object of this investigation has to be to determine who supported them, who would have let them have logistical support and finance this whole tragedy that occurred. This investigation, 6 months into it, is still relatively early. And again, I think as information is developed in Afghanistan and through interviews that are being conducted, I think further leads and perhaps further indictments will be obtained.
But
Go ahead, Juliette.
So, I mean, in this regard, I think Lou is right. And the war analogy sort of fails when you talk about law enforcement, because it's, law and making a case are sort of boring and methodical and kind of quiet, and we do things with the Canadians over the border, or we get information from someone. They're not these very public events. And so in that regard, there's all sorts of good things being done underneath the radar screen that will help us in satisfying sort of this law enforcement role, where I think maybe we might have erred is in these more public things, like the detention of 1,200, 1,500 people, or the interviewing of 5,000 Arabs or Muslims, that appear not only to sort of have made a lot of noise, but from the looks of it, don't appear to have done much.
Lou, what do you think? Do you think the detaining of some 1,000 people within the United States has achieved anything?
Well, I think certainly in reaction to preventing any potential acts, those people that were identified as having been here illegally, they did need to detain and certainly gather information as to their purpose for being into the United States. But again, I think, we have to be mindful of the safeguards. Obviously, they have access to the court system. I guess they're going to, institute some kind of litigation right now. And I think we have to let the process follow its course.
All right, Lucia Liro, Juliette Kayyem, thanks very much for being with us tonight. In the last 6 months, we have learned more than we ever thought we'd know about Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda, and international terrorism. But the question is, have we learned enough to even guess what may come next? That is our focus when The Point returns.
I've got a brand new grandson.
I still have a younger brother in college. I email him a lot.
Very easy to use.
Instant messages are amazing.
I love hearing
You've got mail. AOL is really quick.
America Online has new music. I feel like a part of a community with AOL. She's always on AOL.
Customer service has been superb.
I love AOL.
America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-800-4ONLINE.
Triple miles from participating airlines when you stay at any Choice hotel in the U.S. and the Caribbean. And you'll also get the chance to enter our 2 million mile giveaway. One lucky traveler will win 1 million miles, and 10 people will win 100,000 miles. Sounds like it's a good time to hit the road. For reservations, call 1-800-4CHOICE.
You've all read this. Top Shelf Consultants. $2 million. Pure strategic thinking could put us years ahead. The board is psyched. I'm psyched. It's a brilliant plan. One question. Given our current technology, is this implementable?
No.
No.
No. Strategies you can actually execute?
No.
Now there's a plan. Still psyched?
She endured rape, murder, depression, and more. In a very rare interview, hear legendary singer Connie Francis tell her amazing story of tragedy and survival. Tonight, 9 Eastern on Larry King Live. Then, on a day of looking back, we'll also bring you the courageous stories of those moving forward, of people pulling together to rebuild their lives, plus a view of ground zero few have seen on a special news night with Aaron Brown, beginning at 9 Eastern on CNN tonight.
Next, who's still out there waiting to strike? CNN's Mike Betcher looks at the continuing threat.
We're talking about people who have infiltrated surreptitiously, who are attempting to blend in, who are evading detection to the best way they can.
The Point. We'll be right back.
We moved into a new house where Mom got this great new job. I heard her talking to Dad about doing the right thing with her retirement money. Something about rollover, which gave me this great idea. Come on, baby. Come on. Roll over. Roll over. You're just gonna turn your body this way. I hope her rollover was easier. It must be.
No Load Mutual Funds from T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Reconsidering the axis of evil. On the next American Morning, the president's speech caught some allies by surprise. What's he doing to make things right? At 7 a.m. Eastern.
Constant change has kept Cadillac in the forefront of the luxury automotive industry with new looks and innovations. Ironically, Allen Cadillac in Laguna Niguel has remained an industry leader by staying the same. We're still offering the best values, a large selection, and the highest level of customer service that has made us a leader for over 5 decades. Allen Cadillac in Laguna Niguel. Our family serving your family since 1947.
San Diego. Recharge the batteries or give yourself a jump start. Visit 3 of America's finest casinos with slots, table games, restaurants, shopping, and golf. And if that still isn't enough action for you, Come on, this is San Diego. Come out and play. Log on to sandiego.org or call 1-800-701-WAVE to get your casino comp card loaded with hundreds of reasons to visit.
Enter to win HGTV's Dream Home on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland with fine home furnishings from Ethan Allen, plus an all-new Chevy Trailblazer. Also enter to win a local prize of a $500 Best Buy gift card. Enter at these local sponsors.
Custom Windows and Remodeling in Lake Forest and Tompkins Flooring in Laguna Hills and Irvine.
Brought to you nationally by Chevy Trailblazer, Sherwin-Williams Paint Stores, and these national sponsors. HGTV's Dream Home. Enter today.
Weekend Getaways, the SeaWorld Fun Card. It lets you visit SeaWorld again, and again. Yet it costs the same as a single day's admission, just $42.95. Better keep your bags packed because you pay once and come back the rest of the year on us. Better hurry, this offer won't last. The SeaWorld Fun Card. Real value, real simple, real fun. Call toll-free 1-866-SHAMU-FUN.
This is CNN.
And welcome back to The Point. After September 11th, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and Afghanistan quickly became the center of the bullseye in the war on terrorism. 6 months later, where else is the world aiming? We asked CNN national correspondent Mike Boettcher for an update.
From Earth orbit, a before and after glimpse. A complex of Al-Qaeda training camps before September 11th, and the same camps after U.S. bombs left them pockmarked, virtually erased.
What was removed in Afghanistan from Al-Qaeda, in my view, was the elimination of their Fort Bragg or their Fort Irwin National Training Center.
Documents left behind after the rapid Taliban Al-Qaeda retreat provide clues to the intentions of those who escaped. In a small green book, notes of a student terrorist.
To work in the cities, you need small, separate groups whose members do not exceed 4. It is preferable that these members be from the cities because moving in the cities, you need individuals who are accustomed to this type of life because cities are loaded with government spies.
But what cities? In what countries? U.S. officials have been consistent in their warnings.
We believe that we are still targeted, that there are Al-Qaeda associated individuals around the world, some in the United States, that are intent on committing terrorist acts within the country.
Depriving Al-Qaeda of its Afghan sanctuaries disrupted its operations, but the group is far from completely defeated. Evidence points to Al-Qaeda reconstituting itself, replacing fallen leaders while fragmenting into smaller groups that will be difficult to track, forming what are known as sleeper cells.
When we talk about sleeper cells, we're talking about people who have infiltrated surreptitiously, who are attempting to blend in, who are evading detection to the best way they can.
With the help of 3 sources from different anti-terror coalition intelligence services and a high-ranking member of Afghanistan's new intelligence agency, CNN has been able to piece together the routes Al-Qaeda followed into a world of potential targets.
Several hundred at least slipped through the most guarded and well-known route, east towards Pakistan. But many fled through 2 secret back doors. West to Iran, according to our sources, a transshipment point, not condoned by the elected Iranian government, but facilitated by Iran's more radical Revolutionary Guard. Some Al-Qaeda remained there. Others moved on to Lebanon. An unknown number remained there, according to intelligence sources, in areas controlled by the Hezbollah, a group the U.S. designates as terrorist. Others dispersed east and west, destinations unknown. Another back door opened south. In the weeks before September 11th and for a few days immediately following, approximately 1,000 Al-Qaeda operatives, using false identification, made their way from Afghanistan to the tiny Indian Ocean islands of the Seychelles and the Federal Islamic Republic of the Comoros, where they again dispersed east and west. One Al-Qaeda cell was broken up in Singapore when its surveillance video of potential U.S. targets there was found by U.S. forces in an abandoned house in Afghanistan. And allegedly, suicide bomber Richard Reed was foiled in mid-flight. But many more cells remain hidden. What are their capabilities? Extensive, according to terrorism analysts. Al-Qaeda's 10-volume Encyclopedia of Jihad taught them assassination, bomb-making, and surveillance techniques. And CNN has obtained portions of a recent addition to Al-Qaeda's body of knowledge, an 11th volume devoted solely to manufacturing chemical and biological weapons from ingredients readily available to the public. In an abandoned Kabul, Afghanistan home used by Al-Qaeda's top bomb maker, CNN discovered more disturbing material. A document titled Super Bomb, a discussion of the process of making a nuclear device, but no evidence they ever succeeded.
The program appears to have existed for a long time, and that's one of the things that has to give you pause, is that they've been thinking about this a long time.
The battle against Al-Qaeda still rages in Afghanistan, but the biggest threat lies elsewhere. Virtually invisible opponents, well-trained, well-equipped, and well-motivated by a leader who himself has disappeared, Osama bin Laden, his face not seen since his last interview, when he vowed to press his battle inside America until victory, or until death. Mike Betcher, CNN, Atlanta.
So journalist Eric Margolyes, he of course is the author of War at the Top of the World, The Struggle for Afghanistan, Kashmir, and Tibet. And in California, UC Santa Barbara Global Studies professor Mark Juergensmeyer. His book is Terror in the Mind of God, The Global Rise of Religious Violence. Thanks very much for being with us this evening. Mark, I want to start off with you. How much of a threat does Al-Qaeda remain?
Well, Al-Qaeda really needs three things to be successful. They need the organizational and technological ability to carry out their actions. They need dedications of their perpetrators. And they also need a willing audience, a receptive audience within the Muslim world. Now, the operation in Afghanistan may have seriously crippled the first, but not necessarily the second two. In fact, the perpetrators, those that still exist, probably are even more dedicated. And alas, as the Gallup poll recently showed in the Middle East, America's reputation, its identity as a kind of the great satanic power that Osama bin Laden said it was, has even risen in the minds of at least some people within the Muslim world. So alas, I'm afraid the ingredients are still there for further terrorist acts.
Eric, how seriously do you take the threat from these sleeper cells? We are told Al-Qaeda is decentralized. We are told the groups are sometimes no more than 4 people. Are the sleeper cells real in your estimation?
Well, they're small cells. Sleeper is maybe too dramatic a term for them. I don't think there are very many in North America, but there certainly are in Europe and the Middle East and Asia. But as I've been saying on this program since 9/11, Al-Qaeda is not the only anti-American organization that is operating in some of these attacks or planning attacks against the United States. The roots of Al-Qaeda are really in Egypt, not in Afghanistan. And there remain, particularly the Egyptian group, Islamic Egyptian Jihad, very dangerous group, very anti-American, opposed to American support of Egypt's government. And so by characterizing everything as Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, the U.S. is making a mistake, I think, because it's not looking widely enough. And I want to make another comment about these notorious Al-Qaeda camps. I've been in some of them in Afghanistan. They were old Mujahideen camps from the Afghan War. And knocking those camps out was the least important part of fighting against potential terrorists. You could have trained these people in a parking lot in New Jersey, aside from the weapons training. They're urban guerrillas, and you have to look in urban centers, not in the mountains of Afghanistan.
Mark, how much significance do you
give
to the
fact... Let me add to what Eric said, because he's absolutely right. And even Al-Qaeda is not the corporate network structure that we might like to think it is. Osama bin Laden is not the CEO of terrorism. And if you get rid of him, you by no means even disrupt the entire nexus of the Al-Qaeda network, which is a loosely affiliated structure of a lot of different groups after all. The group that was involved in bombing the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center initially we thought had nothing to do with Osama bin Laden because it was rooted in an Egyptian group. Only later did we find through Ramzi Youssef the Osama bin Laden connections.
Well, Mark, in your estimation then, where do we need to go next in this investigation? Where should the focus be?
Well, there are different aspects of what we need to do in the war on terrorism. Investigation, of course, is part of it, and surveillance and the kind of vigilance that's necessary throughout the world, including in Europe and Spain, as well as in Philippines and Indonesia. But we also need to address the roots of the problem within the Muslim world. America's involvement in trying to negotiate a peace settlement between Israel and Palestine, I think, would go a long way to undercut the potential support for such terrorist acts.
Eric, how important do you think that is? I mean, how much does the equation change with the uptick in violence in Israel?
Well, I think Mark has put his finger right on the problem. You can't have a policy that's all stick and no carrot. It just, experience teaches us that doesn't work. These attacks were launched, in the words of bin Laden, saying there will be no peace in the United States unless there's peace in Palestine. And obviously Palestine, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq are the roots of this problem and the roots of Muslim hatred for the United States. The United States is now planning to go and launch military operations in Yemen and to invade Iraq, and they're talking about attacking Syria. Richard Pearl just said that recently, and they're in Georgia now planning to fight the Chechens. This is sure to arouse more anger and wrath against the United States rather than less, and to provoke more terrorist attacks in the United States and against Americans abroad.
That's an interesting point, Eric. I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there. Eric Margolis, Mark Juergensmeyer, thank you very much for being with us this evening and your points of view. And The Point will be right back.
I'm Lou Dobbs with this Moneyline update. Stocks recovering from early losses on Wall Street. The Dow up 38 points on the day. The Nasdaq fell less than a point. Anderson in talks with one of its competitors. Anderson is discussing selling some or all of its operations to Deloitte and Touche. Watch Moneyline weeknight 6 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
Moneyline Update is brought to you by Dreyfus. You, your advisor, and Dreyfus working together to achieve your financial goals.
Coming Tuesday on video and DVD. The Plan.
Anybody can get the goods. The hard part's getting away.
The Bait.
She could talk her way out of a sunburn.
The Con.
Everybody needs money. That's why they call it money.
Heist. So many twists, you'll need to see it more than once.
Get triple miles from participating airlines when you stay at any Choice hotel in the U.S. and the Caribbean. And you'll also get the chance to enter our 2 million mile giveaway. One lucky traveler will win 1 million miles, and 10 people will win 100,000 miles. Sounds like it's a good time to hit the road. For reservations, call 1-800-4CHOICE.
I do all her copying, faxing, and printing, and she barely says hi. Jim takes my copies to her desk, and now they're sushi buddies. Oh. Super.
Toshiba copiers make you look good.
Hey, Dad, my tuition's due.
How much do you need?
About $8,500.
What if getting money from your home equity was this painless? Well, thanks to Ditech.com, it may be. Just log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED now. Our whole application process is fast and easy.
Hey, Mom, we need another roll.
We'll arrange an appraiser, notary, and even deliver to your door. Ditech.com, your mortgage solution delivered.
Closed captioning for selected programs provided by Garlic, cholesterol's natural enemy.
Taking garlic to maintain normal cholesterol? You should know Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. Take 1 tablet per day of Garlic or up to 6 of some other brands. Garlic, cholesterol's natural enemy.
A developing story in Illinois. Authorities have caught and charged a man with possession of a chemical weapon, powdered cyanide. The FBI says the man, Joseph Konopka, claims to be the leader of a Wisconsin group of vandals called Realm of Chaos. He and a juvenile were picked up Saturday. Reports say they were storing the cyanide in an underground passage that is part of Chicago's transit system. We, of course, will be following that story. Let us know how you think the world has changed since September 11th. Our email address is thepoint@cnn.com. I'm Anderson Cooper in New York. Up next on Larry King, a conversation with singer Connie Francis. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Tonight, before Madonna or Britney, there was Connie Francis. But after chart-topping triumphs, heartbreaking tragedy.
Good evening again. I'm Aaron Brown. We're back on the roof of the CNN Bureau here in New York. Behind us, you can see the two spotlights that were lit tonight, two lights that mark where the World Trade Center was, and to mark the 6th anniversary of the tragedy, the terrorist act that brought them down. 6 months is not very long, but it is long enough for the sharpness of the pain of September 11th to be replaced by a dull but constant ache of what happened and what was lost. Time, even 6 months, offers us perspective. We can see some things more clearly. But for good or ill, perhaps both, time makes it easier, or possible even, to forget the worst and move on. This program tonight is not the program we generally do here. No whip tonight, no headlines, not much news of day, really. It is not about the big issues, not about public policy or war plans, not about polls and politics and popularity ratings. It is about people we've met, lives that have been changed, struggles that go on each day. It is about what time has changed and what it can't. Over the next hour, and we hope you'll stay with us till the very end of it, which will be a reading by the actress Mary Tyler Moore, and it is about as powerful a piece as we've ever seen or aired. But the hour is short on the big picture, as we said, and long on the little pieces that make the big picture come alive. The firemen in Brooklyn. You will laugh with them and cry with them. We'll take you to one of the poorest places in our country to make the point that no place, not one, was spared the tragedy of 9/11. It is not a maudlin trip we take tonight, but it's not an easy ride either. And it begins with two people you will recognize, though you won't know their names. Both were captured by still photographers in those first hours or so after the plane struck. Their images were frozen in time, but their lives were not. There's John McGuire, one of the men who helped carry out the body of Father Michael Judge, the fire department chaplain. John was at the head of the line, the one non-firefighter in the shot. The photographer here was Shannon Stapleton of the Reuters news agency. And then there is the woman known to many simply as the Dust Lady. She has a name, of course, Marcy Borders, an image caught by freelance photographer Stan Honda, a picture he sold to Newsweek magazine. And we begin with Marcy's story.
I got to like 8:40, and it was just the beginning of the day. Like, I'm right before my computer was turned on. You knew that something's going on because every other floor underneath you is trying to get on the stairwell at the same time. That's when it just caught me, the debris, and it just like threw me on all fours and like buried me.
You cannot hear the chaos, but it is there, as is the panic. All of it wrapped in a nearly golden glow, covered in smoke and soot. The photograph taken, Marcy Borders, 9/11, frozen in time. She is 28, from Bayonne, New Jersey, the mother of a 9-year-old daughter, a former legal assistant for the Bank of America, once headquartered on the 81st floor of the North Tower. After she escaped from the tower that morning, there was a brief chance encounter with a photographer.
I mean, it wasn't like, it was one of the best images you would want to view out in the world. You know, it's not like, you know, just looking at it just shows like how much fear, like, you know.
The fear since 9/11 has never left. 6 months has changed nothing. Her refuge is her 2-bedroom home. And across the water from Bayonne, a distant view, lies Lower Manhattan. Marcy Borders has not gone back to work, nor has she returned even once to the city. She is a prisoner of September 11th.
I'm still on 9/11. I can't get it out of my head, and I wish... Oh, Lord, I just wish that I could just have a peace of mind, like, you know, like, my brain is so packed, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I tell people, they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just got so much on my brain. Like, you know, they don't understand that it's not them or... And I know everybody has life situations. There's some people who wake up with no cure to their disease, but at the same time, I just have a lot on my brain, and I've never had so much on my brain.
It started like any other day for me. I left for work a little bit earlier than usual. I just remember it being a very beautiful day, probably one of the best days of the year. And I was thinking about what can I do? I have this military experience, I have some first aid experience. Maybe I can go up there and possibly do something to try to help someone. Like, I'm not married, I don't have kids. And I basically said, I don't know if I could live with myself if I don't try to go do something. The next thing I know, I see the doors open, they're bringing a body out, and they had some tables and chairs. And 5 men were trying to, struggling to try to pick up the chair. And that turned out to be Father Judge.
This is John McGuire, a graduate of West Point, and for the past 2 years, an employee at Goldman Sachs 5 blocks from the World Trade Center. While others were fleeing the burning towers, McGuire was rushing in. 28 years old, his moment, his decision, captured on film just after the South Tower collapsed.
And, I can just remember the ground being very difficult to walk on. At a couple of points, Father Judge's body slumped forward, so we had to stop, and regroup and, make sure that our grip was sufficient enough to carry him.
Father Michael Judge, a fire department chaplain for 9 years, died on the job. The photograph tells just a part of the story. For after aiding Michael Judge, McGuire went back to help, to rescue, to do something, anything, his moment still.
I had been taught, duty, honor, country, service, selfless service to your country, a lifelong of selfless service. It just doesn't end when you're out of uniform. I think having that experience, I felt compelled to do what I did.
6 months and some treatment for nightmares later, McGuire still commutes to his Lower Manhattan office. But as his New York-bound ferry docks each morning, and he looks out, the day, the fear, the death, and the sorrow are relived again.
It's definitely a constant reminder. It was such a dominating fixture in the New York skyline, and to have it gone, you sort of, I think it almost makes you lose your sense of where you are, because it was such a beacon and such a building where you could look up for, and you always knew sort of where you are in Manhattan.
Those are just 2 of the people you'll be meeting tonight. Others to come, among them the men of Engine Company 205 and Ladder 118, 2 teams of firefighters who lost 8 brothers on September 11th. That's a little bit later. Up next, Ground Zero itself 6 months later. It has changed a lot since that horrible day 6 months ago. Some views you've never seen when Newsnight continues for the 11th of March.
That day started as most of my days start. I got up around 9 o'clock, turned on CNN, and realized what was happening with the first plane going in and then the second one. And I just sat there on the couch in the dining room. I was transfixed for about 5 or 6 hours. And I've never cried as much as I cried that morning and that afternoon. I've never been angrier.
Heist, coming Tuesday on video and DVD. The Plan.
Anybody can get the goods. The hard part's getting away.
The Bait.
She could talk her way out of a sunburn.
The Con.
Everybody needs money. That's why they call it money.
Heist. So many twists, you'll need to see it more than once.
Roback. Facing high-stakes litigation. Who
Who do the nation's leading consumer, technology, and energy companies turn to? Brobeck, the law firm, when your future is at stake.
Oh, hello, sir.
Can you believe that? Jessica. JT.
People, as of today, I'm back in the game.
You're unretiring? But why?
There's never been a better time to do business. BizFlex saves you up to 50%.
The Acura MDX with available navigation system and off-road tracking.
We moved into a new house where Mom got this great new job. I heard her talking to Dad about doing the right thing with her retirement money. Something about rollover, which gave me this great idea. Come on, baby. Come on. Roll over. Roll over. You're just gonna turn your body this way. I hope her rollover was easier. It must be.
No-load mutual funds from T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
We said at the beginning, we'll say it again, this is a program about people, but for a few moments, it's about a place, and the place is Ground Zero. Thousands of tons of steel and debris have been removed from the site. Hundreds of bodies, however, still remain. And there are still places there, one along the north wall, another in the southeast corner where recovery teams expect, or perhaps it is hope, to find many more victims buried in the stairwells that have yet to be uncovered. We were down in the pit yesterday, a place where only workers have been allowed to walk before. And then we flew over the site last Thursday, a trip that was both the same and very different from a flight we made the first Sunday after the attack. This trip to Ground Zero begins that Sunday morning, back in September, and the report we filed minutes after getting off a Coast Guard chopper. When you get in the air, it unfolds in front of you. In fact, as we came around the southern tip of the island and started to move in closer, it was almost a sense of awe. Awe at the audaciousness of the plan, awe at the evil brilliance of the plan, awe at the power that those two jet bombs, fully loaded wide-body jets, their power to destroy. Of course, it doesn't look anything like it did that day. The smoke and fire are gone finally. Hundreds of tons of debris gone. That Sunday, there was still hope of finding someone alive. I remember thinking as we flew over that day, how could anyone survive in that? Now the hope is that a body will be found, maybe a few, something for the families. You can't see reverence from the air, and you can't miss it in the pit. And we walked the pit yesterday with FEMA Director Joe Albaugh.
You don't have anybody screaming or yelling. People treat this place with respect. And I think every day about those families who still have more questions than they have answers. It bothers me. I feel like I ought to be able to give them answers. And we're working as hard as we can. One of the most moving things I've ever seen in my life is how people here react every time they find another body. You could not ask for, if you're a family, you couldn't ask for people to do better by your loved one in that situation.
These are American heroes.
Yeah.
find yourself seeing it as a construction site?
Never.
You never lose sight of what it was, what it is.
You can't. It's impossible. And it gets me every time I come here. I fired a bunch of people when I first showed up.
Really?
Yeah. Treating it like it was just another deal. Another tornado, another earthquake, another flood. It's not.
No, it's not even close to another deal. But still see the smoke coming up in October and November and early December. Right. How long is that going to go?
You were asking how long would it go, would it ever stop? And the amazing thing, Aaron, we haven't lost any life down here. It's absolutely incredible. I've been down here when it's been so dangerous. We've had people who have been cut, bruised.
There are a lot of times when I'll be on the roof and I'll look down and expect to see the towers. It's like, you never get used to it.
Every time I fly in, everyone looks for the towers. They're not there. And you just can't believe it. It's hard for your mind's eye to get its arms around.
I think your brain wants it to be a nightmare. So you expect to see the towers. You expect somehow we'll wake up and we won't see this anymore.
Well, in the early days, I felt like I visited hell, and it was right here.
I think you're probably right.
So it all looks different, and if this makes any sense, it all feels exactly the same. There is the same sense of audacity to plan such a tragedy, the same sense of evil brilliance that somehow pulled it off, the same sense of sorrow we felt that day, of lives lost, of lives shattered. Those feelings are no different. We're grateful to the Coast Guard, to Chief Brandon Brewer in particular, for the helicopter tour. The men and women of the Coast Guard are very busy these days around here, providing security to the Port of New York, a very busy place. We owe them a lot, and we're very appreciative. They took some time out to give us a tour that we took the other day. We are also appreciative to Joe Alba and FEMA for their time yesterday. And in that regard, a quick note to pass along. The deadline to apply for federal emergency assistance has been extended to September 30th. It was supposed to expire today. FEMA can be reached at this 800 number, 1-800-462-9029, 1-800-462-9029. The reason it's been extended, 300 people a day, 300 are still showing up for help here in New York, help with the rent, help finding a place to live, help with emotional problems. 68,000 people have been helped so far by FEMA. Many more clearly are waiting. And that's the phone number. Coming up next on Newsnight, the survivors of a pair of fire units, Engine 205 and Ladder 118, and their 8 brothers who did not come home.
On September 11th, I was training in Calgary, getting ready for the Olympics, and I called my father, and he said, "Have you turned on the TV?" I said, "No." And he said, "Both the towers in New York City have gone down," and I just couldn't believe it, you know. And 5 minutes later, I was at the university where I trained, and they pulled all the TV sets out all over the place, and you know, everybody was just watching in amazement, you know, and it just, I was just, you know, I knew people in New York and frantically trying to call people, and you know, it was just a very scary time, you know, and it was an attack on my friends, it was an attack on me, it was an attack on my country.
New America Online version 7.0 is here.
There's never been a better time to join.
What are you waiting for? Call 1-877-265-0100 now for AOL's best offer ever.
7.0 is filled with a whole bunch of new stuff.
No one has what AOL has.
Call now and do things with new AOL 7.0 you could never do before.
There's even more local information.
News, weather, sports.
Radio without any static. Right on my computer. 7.0 makes shopping easier. AOL is super fast.
Call now and see how new AOL version 7.0 can keep you in touch with friends and family.
I can be talking to a few people at the same time.
All of a sudden, bing, you got your instant messages.
You got mail. It's fun getting email.
You've got mail.
Hers should say you've got lots of mail.
Call now and see how easy it is to get started. Sign up over the phone and be online in minutes.
7.0 makes it even easier.
Call 1-877-265-0100 now to join AOL and get a risk-free special offer for new members. It's our best offer ever.
AOL is wonderful.
America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1.
Reconsidering the axis of evil. On the next American Morning, the president's speech caught some allies by surprise. What's he doing to make things right? At 7 a.m. Eastern.
I gotta let go. Gotta leave this thing behind now that I found something new inside. Watch me now as I'm leaving you behind me. Realize it's time to find and let me free. Like the bird, I feel the wind blow. I know when it's time to go.
Ain't no party like a left coast party, cause a left coast party don't stop. Hey man, get me up off this rug. Whoa, ooh, be careful now. Don't drop me. Ooh, check out the new me. Hey!
This is CNN.
No anniversary there, not ground zero tonight. A remarkable thing on the website for the New York City Fire Department. It's a funeral and memorial calendar. So many deaths, so many services, even 6 months later, that you need a calendar just to keep track of them. And there was another funeral today. Richard Allen was the firefighter's name, on the job less than a year when September 11th happened. And for each one of those firemen who died, 2 families were shattered, the one at home and the other at the firehouse. Over in Brooklyn, the grief is still fresh as it was 6 months ago. There are 8 empty helmets in the firehouse where the men of 2 companies, Engine Company 205 and Ladder 118, come to work each day. These guys are something. Their experiences are the experiences of thousands of their brothers that day, and their willingness to talk to us, to be open and honest, to cry and to laugh with us was a blessing we will never forget.
I was waiting relief that morning for a detail from another firehouse, and about 8:45, one of the mechanics that was here to work on the rig, he knocked on the door and told us a plane hit the trade center. The engine got to run first. We got on a rig going over the bridge.
I came over the bridge, we saw hundreds of people covered with ash running towards us. They all were in the first collapse.
Going over the bridge, the way everybody's running from, it was a pretty scary feeling. You'd be lying if you're not saying it was scary, you know, because you don't know what you're going to.
We got there and then it was just crazy. Everything was on fire, cars were on fire. As we're walking there, everything was destroyed. All the cars, the trucks. You see cars just like they were just thrown against the buildings.
More than 5 minutes after we were there, we found the engine 205. I spoke to the chauffeur, Tom. He says that they're all gone. I don't know where they are. At that moment is when we felt the ground rumble.
We took off running in pairs of 2s, it turned out. I dove under a truck, they ran down the block, 2 other guys ran to the battery tunnel. Rumbling, thundering, steel bending, whatever you want to call it. And it was like an avalanche, like picture an avalanche in black.
It was just black. Black, I mean black like you've never seen.
It was completely silent. There was no one around but us 6 guys, it seemed like. And when we walked, you could see your first footprints as you were walking in the ash.
I seen the rig, seen 118, and the windows were all blown out. It was parked facing the World Trade, and I seen it, and everything inside was burned. I was like, and I looked, and I didn't see nobody in there. I was like, all right, cool, they're not there. So I'm working. I'm like, you know what? I realize it's a mess. When I run into them, I'll run into them. You know, I'm sure they're all right.
Right after both towers came down, we were right on that pile within minutes.
There were so many voids. I'm thinking there's got to be tons of people. And when you looked around, it was already getting dark out. It was just dusk. And all you could see was flames in the distance all around you from things burning. And I remember thinking, this is what hell must look like.
Now you're thinking about the reports that you heard. You know, 118 was in the building. Are they out? You know, maybe after that report, they realized the severity and got out.
Then I seen a couple of guys. I was like, hey, where's everybody? They were like, oh, reports are that we lost the truck and the engine's all right. What do you mean lost the truck? Can't find them? Stand by for the like, no, they're missing. Missing where?
They were getting people out of the Marriott. There was an elevator mechanic who works in the Marriott Hotel. He worked with the guys from 118.
I met up with the 118 group. These guys were like the Rocky Balboas. They go into something that's all against them, and they don't care. They knew the building was coming down. I didn't. I thought it was part of the plane. And just using their bodies as barricades, not allowing people to go out into the falling structure out to West Street. I turned around. They pushed me back in the building. I turned around and I saw them in 1 minute, and then they were gone.
Do you think people see you differently?
Without a doubt.
Are you different? Has this changed you?
As a person?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
How?
It feels like a piece of me has been removed. Like you say, we laugh and all that stuff, but the laughter is very short-lived, I think. You laugh, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about how many guys that you knew that would add. It's just something that's different inside of me. I don't know. I don't think it's going to come out like I'm not depressed. I'm not. It's just something's different.
I think what's different is that you reflect back to it more often than you did before. Before, you play with your kids and you would just, that would be the only thing you did. Now in the middle of playing with your kids, you might have a thought. Might come to one of their kids. It might be, oh, I wonder how that guy's doing now, or that family. So
you can't get away from it.
Oh no, I don't know if I want to get away from it yet, but no, we can't get away from it.
Are you sick of talking about it?
It does get to the point where it's a little bit repetitive, but we're not sick of talking about it.
Most of the time you talk about the guys, all brothers. Most of the time the conversations talk about them. You may forget about a real funny story that happened 10 years ago. You know, 8 years ago in my case, some of these guys 20 years ago. And you'll forget about that in your everyday business, and you hear a funny story like that, and you know, it makes you feel good for the moment.
We also talk about their families, their wives, their mothers, their kids.
Did you go visit?
Hell yeah. Still.
They okay?
Some were bad in the beginning, got better. Some were good, strong in the beginning, and got a little worse.
Those of you with kids, are your kids more fearful?
Yes, mine are. In the beginning, definitely. Well, actually, I'd say for a lot of the guys here, because a lot of the guys spent a lot of time away from their families in the first month or 2 or 3. Kids saying like, where's daddy? So I had to explain to my kids is that some of the guys, kids that they know, don't have a father anymore.
And how does a 7-year-old process the fact that daddy's job might claim his life?
They tell me to stay home all the time. Don't go.
And you say?
I have to go.
Because?
Gotta pay the bills. That's my excuse anyway.
Apologize, I assume you've been asked this a lot. Does it seem like 6 months?
1 day.
Really? 1 day?
1 day for me. For me, it seems it's been a long day, but it's 1 day. I mean, it doesn't seem like it happened 6 months ago. To me, it's yesterday.
It seems like yesterday those guys were sitting here.
It doesn't seem like 6 months ago, I can tell you that. I mean, I think about it today. I try, you know, I'm not going to say I try to put it out of my mind. I just try and go about my normal routine in life. And somehow it's something triggers something that pops into your head about someone of our guys or somebody else I might know from the Trade Center.
Do you look forward to a day when you don't think about it?
Sure.
And what will that mean, that day?
I don't know if it'll mean anything. But it'll be nice not to have this cloud over our heads. I mean, the guys we're never going to forget. Whether you think about them or not down the road, we're never going to forget them.
Vernon Cherry. He was the fire department singer. Marty Egan. He was a lieutenant here.
We could get Joe going pretty good. Pete Vega, we used to tease Pete about his head. He had a large cranium. Leon, he's a 6'4", and he had the biggest mitts you ever wanted to see. Scott Davidson, tremendous athlete, basketball player. Teacher on the side. Bobby Regan, he was the quietest guy with the biggest smile you ever wanted to see.
And Bobby Wallace was the wacky one of the bunch.
We're never going to forget them.
God bless those guys, the guys who made it and the guys who didn't. Coming up on Newsnight, one sister's way to honor her lost brother with a hammer and a saw. This is Newsnight on the 11th of March.
It was a dramatic day for all of us, because whenever when we saw the United States, what happened, we were all shocked. I was sitting before the television. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Cairo time. I was looking at the BBC. So I found a plane going here and there. I thought a game. I saw so many games in your television like this. And then suddenly, I see breaking news on the BBC. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I stayed from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock on the chair. I didn't move, except I gave a statement right away condemning this, supporting the United States of whatever it can do against terrorism, because we suffered a lot from terrorism.
Who are these guys? They're a team. The difference between finishing first or last. At Oppenheimer Funds, every member of our global team brings their own expertise. Working together, they've helped Oppenheimer Global Fund beat 98% of its competition over the past 5 years. Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
When reviewing the Lexus LS430, Automobile Magazine said, "No car in this class has more inviting leather, a more comfortable ride, a superior stereo, or a more logical navigation system." Perhaps this is why, for the second year in a row, Automobile Magazine has named the LS430 the best luxury car over $40,000. To its owners, it's the best luxury sedan in the world. The LS430 at your Lexus dealer.
I'm Lou Dobbs with this Moneyline update. Stocks recovering from early losses on Wall Street. The Dow up 38 points on the day. The Nasdaq fell less than a point. Anderson in talks with one of its competitors. Anderson is discussing selling some or all of its operations to Deloitte and Touche. Watch Moneyline weeknight 6 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
Lou Dobbs' Moneyline Update is brought to you by Bank of America, embracing ingenuity. For a snapshot of today's market movement, log on to CNN.com.
Does achievement discriminate? Or does it open its doors to everyone?
In its earliest days, before we even had a name, the program made a decision to give life to the people who died on September 11th. They would not be just names to us, and so many died. 2,830 people in New York in the buildings and on the planes that hit the towers, 189 at the Pentagon in the planes and in the building, another 44 in Pennsylvania, people who may have died victims but not helpless victims. One of the ways we remembered them, and one of the people we remembered, was a guy named Ron Rubin. His sister told us about him. She told us, a guy who cared about people, worried about people, people he knew and people he didn't. And his family and friends took Ron Rubin's message to heart in the months after he died. They built something for someone like Ron would have done if only he had been given more time. So here's Ron Rubin's story and the postscript.
If my brother was going to introduce himself to you, he'd be like this. This is how everybody knows him, with his hands sticking out straight, saying, "Hi, I'm Ron Rubin." He has 1,000,001 friends. Everybody has a Ron story. Either they have a Ron joke or a Ron email or a Ron experience. I just want to keep it alive because it just has ended way, way too early. Ronnie gave so much back. I mean, he gave to every cause. He donated. He got his first bonus from his first employer. He took that bonus and bought holiday presents and donated them to all the hospitals. That's just how he was. He was never too busy to be involved in all of our lives. I feel the need to turn this negative situation into a positive. I have to show my daughter and my nieces and nephew and all the other kids that something good somehow can come out of this. If I could get him back for 1 minute and tell him how many people he really did touch and how many people's hearts he really, really did. And I hope that would make him happy because he has touched so many people. And I don't think he ever realized that. And that's why I think it's so important that we do something to make sure that he stays involved forever.
Building this house and focusing on something positive instead of focusing on the towers coming down and not knowing where Ronnie is, this has made a really big difference because the more I stay positive, the more I keep things busy, the more we see things up and build our spirit, the better I feel about it.
And Ron used to volunteer his time?
Ron volunteered for Habitat also.
He always spoke about leaving his office at the end of the day and not having any tangible proof of him being there. And he always talked about, I want to build something, I want to construct stuff, and then all of a sudden here's this tangible proof that Ron was a great person and a good friend to a lot of people.
He didn't pull any punches or hide anything or have any alternative motives in life. He just lived and laughed, and hopefully I can have as full of life as he had.
I feel like Ron should be here. He would be so into this, and it's sad that he's not here, but I think he does see it. I think he sees it, and he's with us.
I feel like he's running around here doing something. He'll always be remembered, but he'll always be felt, which is even stronger.
He'd really be proud that we were doing this and that we were helping somebody on behalf of him.
Seidel, the recipient of the home, she knows. I think she knows Ron now, and it will always be filled with that love.
They're building my house, and it's a wonderful feeling. I can't express it in words, but the one good thing that I do feel already is that I'm always going to have someone there to watch over me. Ron's always going to be there.
Ron, this is in honor of you to kind of show you and prove to you how much you not only mean to me, but to all your friends and the whole world. I mean, how much you've given back. Ron, you did so much, and I'm really proud of you, and this is a little something for you. And because I just don't want him to ever be forgotten.
The Ron Rubin house is being built along with Habitat for Humanity. It should be completed sometime this summer, and a plaque will be placed out front commemorating Ron and the life he led. Coming up still on Newsnight a little bit later, a poem written by a survivor that will take your breath away. It's read for us by the actress Mary Tyler Moore. And up next, September 11th, as seen in one small and poor corner of rural America. This is Newsnight.
You have emotions of fear and anger. Oh, I was mad. And simply for the people there, just disbelief, couldn't believe it. You know, how can anybody attack the United States and kill innocent people? And as the story unfolded through the day, we just, there were tears and outrage. I was ready to go to war right then. If I could have done anything, I would have done it in a minute, a New York minute, if you will.
Mommy, try one time. Mommy, come. No. Come, hold my hand and come. One time.
With a little expert advice from us, this working mom is protecting 3 generations of people she loves. All through her benefits plan at work.
This is Jessica on Tuesday afternoon.
Since the afternoon this morning.
This is Jessica's college fund. The numbers are still on Tuesday afternoon. Because her parents work with a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch.
I got 62%.
Are you listening here?
Who helps them create a comprehensive plan for Jessica's education, as well as their retirement and a second home. So Jessica's parents can focus on her goals, while their money does the same.
The American way of life is energy in motion. Energy powers our lives and fuels the technologies that make America go. Williams is proud to help deliver that energy through more miles of pipeline than the interstate highway system, including 1/5 of the nation's natural gas. At Williams, our way of life is leading energy solutions.
Honey, how much money did the contractor say he needed?
$7,500.
What if getting money from your home equity was this painless? Well, thanks to Ditech.com, it may be. Just log on or call 1-800-71-FIXED now. Apply to refinance and get cash out for home improvements or anything else. We'll arrange an appraiser, notary, and even deliver to your door. Ditech.com, your mortgage solution delivered.
For the first time on network television, uncut with limited commercial interruptions, a special USA movie event. Adam Sandler is Big Daddy.
I wet my bed.
No! Will somebody get the kid a Happy Meal?
You like that, huh? You think that's funny?
Big Daddy premieres Sunday at 7, 6 Central.
You guys wear the same size t-shirt.
On USA.
In this program about people, here are 3 more. They share a connection to 911 by their occupations and by where they were on that day, the 11th. One is a flight attendant, another a firefighter, another a businessman, and they're all coming to grips with what they saw and what they felt and what they are still experiencing now. We said it at the beginning, 6 months just isn't very long. Here's CNN's Candy Crowley.
This is a special security announcement.
As soon as planes were back in the air, flight attendant Christy Barrett was on the job tending to passengers.
I was prepared to be there for them. I was not prepared for how concerned they were for me.
I put your gear up there. Arlington County firefighter Harry Brady spent hours and hours over days and days pumping water onto the Pentagon. What he has always done in some fashion, seen differently now.
For a while there, I couldn't go to a restaurant without somebody buying me lunch, or, it was sort of like you were a rock star.
Consultant Roy Bell was on the elevator at the 78th floor of Tower 1, headed up for an 8:45 meeting when the plane hit the building. The initial euphoria at having survived has given way now. He confronts not the kindness of strangers, but the strangeness of himself.
I've been very, very angry. It's getting increasingly worse. Matter of fact,
Things are different now in ways both large and small, both precise and undefined.
wake up in the morning and it takes a few seconds before you realize that it's not the same, that things are different, and that there's an empty feeling.
Only 2 people on that elevator survived. Bell suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns. 3 surgeries later, there are no noticeable scars until he talks.
You get in the shower and you just put, you push those feelings away and say you're going to charge, you're going to go out there, you're going to have a good time, you're going to sell stuff, you're going to be successful, you're going to have a great dinner someplace tonight, and maybe there's no tomorrow.
Farther from ground zero, the emotional blowback is not gale force, but the change is real. Not so much things changing, but people. The same job, now wholly different.
You also have this feeling of, I'm definitely in charge of this life or death situation now.
We have to go on a call.
Arlington County's oldest firefighter, Brady has seen a lifetime of death and fire and destruction, but this is a new marker.
It's sort of a reference point in your life, like getting married or having a child, but it's, it's a reference point. It's always, the rest of your life, it'll be before 911 or after 911.
And Roy Bell is back at work and back in therapy, wrestling with himself and all that used to be familiar.
Like yesterday, I was, taking the ferry over to work, and a huge tanker went by. I said, geez, that could be the dirty bomb, which we read about in the Times every day. I'm trying to stay away from media, you guys.
And he is coping, finding comfort in the everydayness of life.
Focusing on the Yankees, Big East basketball, and my job, my wife, my dog, my beach house, surfing, playing golf, living, having fun.
Candy Crowley, CNN, Washington.
We never thought of 9/11 as a New York story or a Washington story. From the first moments on this roof that day, that September day, we saw it as an American story. We believed then and we believe now that no matter where you lived in the country, no matter how rich you were, how poor, no matter your race, your language, you too were attacked that day. Far from the glitz and the noise and the bright lights of New York are some of the poorest people in America. They live in the hills of eastern Kentucky. And at first you think of them as storybook characters, thick accents and powerful moonshine. But they are your countrymen, and they were attacked too. Here's CNN's Serena Alchol.
County.
This is 77 here. You gotta get on 15.
Okay.
All right.
Churches and satellite dishes. We have just arrived in Boonville, which is a town in eastern Kentucky in the county of Owsley, which is one of the poorest counties in the entire country. 1 in 3 people here live below the poverty line. We came here to talk to some of the people that you don't often get to hear from. We'd like to ask you or your mom, how you guys were affected by September 11th.
Well, we watched it on TV and we all cried.
And the town, did you notice things were different afterwards, like right away, or?
Yeah, people started putting flags up and signs and helping raise money and stuff.
And this is an area that doesn't have a lot of money itself.
Yeah, so. This is a poor county.
You definitely see a lot of poverty in this area, but one of the things you can't miss, the flags on the cars and on the doors. So we're going to head in here and try and talk to these guys. Have you always had electricity and running water? And
No. When I was up, I didn't get electricity till I was about 6 years old. Then when we got it, I thought I was in heaven.
Yeah. Have things changed for you since September 11th? Do you notice?
Not really. Not the same.
What about making a living? It's not gotten a little tougher?
Just a little bit, but it's always been rough around here, though, so...
Is that right?
Yeah.
From there, we stopped by the local music store to see how business was affected by September 11th. It's warm in here. You guys have your stove going.
Yeah, got our pot belly going.
Nice. It gives off a lot of heat. Was it busier before?
Yeah, business was doing pretty good, then it just fell off. This just died. I've sat here all month and sell a couple sets of strings and that'd be it. I've had several people to buy the American straps that normally they wouldn't buy, So that's been a pretty good seller, to bring in a little change,
Then we drove further into the countryside where the ripples of September 11th could be felt even at a local farm. So you know most everyone around here?
Yeah, about everybody knows everybody around here.
So all of these horses are for sale?
Yep.
How are sales right now?
Decent.
Yeah.
They fell off some.
Since September 11th?
Yeah, a lot of people ain't coming in from out of state buying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you trade 4 or 5 times, some days you don't trade nothing.
She's going to lay an egg up there.
Let's go into its next door.
Then I was offered some mountain hospitality. What is it?
It's moonshine.
Okay.
Take your little taste.
That's very strong. That's good. Back in town, we went to what used to be the county jail. This is a food bank where people can come every week to pick up a box of food that they're just given to help them live.
We've got this lunch meat, and we've got hot dogs.
Food program here, it helps people out a lot.
This is the main food room?
Yeah, this is the main food room where we store things, and we make boxes.
Used to be the detention
Well, this used to be
center.
the jail.
Here, volunteers are coping with problems that existed long before September 11th. What sort of stuff do you pick up?
Beef stew, chicken and dumplings, rice, number of things.
We followed Sarah back to her trailer, which has no running water. But it was her September 11th journal that she wanted to share with us.
Residents of the county were all in shock as the acts of terrorism was felt here as throughout the world. Many people stayed home listening to their TV and radios and news all day for information on the attack.
And before we left, Sarah's father offered up one of his favorite songs.
I'm hoping and I'm praying that my heart breaks right in two. I'm walking the floor over you.
They say that Owsley County is the most impoverished people of, anybody. But we probably got the most spirit of anybody, too.
The rest of the country. Coming up, how life has changed. A remarkable poem read by the equally remarkable Mary Tyler Moore. This is Newsnight from New York.
Hello, Moto.
Making the connection between the people and issues inside the political scene. Judy Woodruff, another reason why you can depend on CNN.
GMC evolved into the world's best trucks by listening to what people want. Ironically, Allen GMC in Laguna Niguel has remained an industry leader by staying the same. We've been giving customers exactly what they want since 1947. Incredible values, a large selection, and the highest level of customer service. It's just how we do business. Always have, always will. Allen Cadillac GMC in Laguna Niguel. Our family serving your family since 1947.
Fashion. Furnishings. Food. Fun. Day or night, the marketplace. We've got it all. I-5 at Jamboree.
Iron Chef! The challengers, the Iron Chefs, and the battle for the ultimate honor. Experience the spectacle, the pageantry, the wonder that is Iron Chef. Iron Chef.
Friday nights at 10 Eastern and Pacific on Food Network.
Brought to you locally by Arbor Grill, Dana Point's headquarters for fresh Pacific lobster.
It's an extraordinary kitchen. Discover Viking at Pacific Sales. Viking and Pacific Sales. Let your imagination run wild. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Bath Centers throughout Southern California.
This is CNN.
The two lights that were the Trade Center. Finally from us tonight, how one life has changed. We're going to dispense with a big wind-up for this piece. It is so powerful on its own that we don't think any description from us could make it better or do it justice. So we'll just tell you this is a poem written by one survivor about her co-workers, and it is read for us by the actress Mary Tyler Moore.
How My Life Has Changed. A poem by Hillary North, an employee of the Aon Corporation, which lost 176 people on September 11th. I can no longer flirt with Lou. I can no longer dance with Myra. I can no longer eat brownies with Suzanne Y. I can no longer meet the deadline with Mark. I can no longer talk to George about his daughter. I can no longer drink coffee with Rich. I can no longer make a good impression on Chris. I can no longer smile at Paul L. I can no longer confide in Lisa. I can no longer work on a project with Donna R. I can no longer get to know Yolanda. I can no longer call the client with Nick. I can no longer contribute to Karen's book drive. I can no longer hang out with Millie. I can no longer give career advice to Suzanne P. I can no longer laugh with Donna G. I can no longer watch Mary Ellen cut through the bull. I can no longer drink beer with Paul B. I can no longer have a meeting with Dave W. I can no longer leave a message with Andrea. I can no longer gossip with Anna. I can no longer run into Dave P. at the vending machine. I can no longer call Steve about my computer. I can no longer compliment Lorenzo. I can no longer hear Herman's voice. I can no longer trade voicemails with Norman. I can no longer ride the elevator with Barbara. I can no longer say hello to Stephen every morning. I can no longer see the incredible view from the 103rd floor of the South Tower. I can no longer take my life for granted.
Someday we'll understand all of this better. Someday. That's our report for tonight. For all of us at Newsnight, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow from New York.